The protagonist was honored or cursed. God chose him to save 100 worlds. He was expelled from each of them, but received a new skill. Now he is an unrivaled warrior, but fate and his soul demand more. Will he be able to go through trials again and change the fate of the worlds again and again? Let's find out. The story begins with Ed standing in front of the door, looking at it and thinking that this is the door to World 1. This is his world. Finally he will see all his friends. Even if he had been there for 100 years, he still clearly remembers their faces. He held the key in his hand, after which he went to the door, inserted it into the lock. After all, only 10 years have passed. He thinks that now his world has become a pretty peaceful place. He began to turn the keys. He thought that he had no doubt about it. Not long before, he was sitting at the table with his team, and one of them asked him to listen. That tomorrow he may not come. The main character held a mug in his hand and was at a loss. Then he asked what the reason was. Do they have a day off tomorrow? After which he was told that no, he just should not come tomorrow and never. He was even more at a loss and replied that he did not understand him. He drank too much. Then they apologized to him for being so sudden, but they were discussing one issue without him. It concerns the protagonist. He should understand them. Then everyone sighed sadly. The protagonist was perplexed, spread his arms out to the sides and asked if they were joking. He didn't believe it. Then he asked, what about their promises to kill the demon lord together? Then he furiously put his hands on the table and shouted that they were joking, right? Then another team member answered him that no, they weren't joking. They asked him not to think anything bad. He was a great guy, and they were happy to accept him into their group. After all, they were even able to learn new things thanks to him. Then the protagonist asked, then why was he being kicked out? Then they furiously asked him, what's wrong with him lately? He started shirking his duties, doing nothing in training. While everyone else is trying hard, improving their skills, he does absolutely nothing. They thought it was temporary. They believed that he would return to his former self, but that didn't happen. And their patience snapped. The protagonist sat sadly, his head down, and replied that he understood them. Then they added that they were also kicking him out of the hero's party. Everyone sat at the table, sadly. Then the protagonist received a notification that the conditions were met. There were 10 minutes left until the transfer. After which the protagonist smiled and then jumped up from his seat, raising his hands up and shouted that he had succeeded. One party member asked what was wrong with him. Had he gone crazy from such news? To which he replied that he was fine. It was just that his wish had finally come true. Then he asked them if they would take this for the last time. He used magic and took out books from the spatial storage. Everyone was confused and asked what this was and what the hell it was for. The protagonist stood with his hand on his hip and replied that this was a manual. The girl shouted, does he have a skill like unlimited storage? Was he hiding such a unique skill from them? To which the protagonist replied that he had to. Then they asked him what that meant. Had to. If he had such a great skill, it could be used in many ways. Then he asked them to read these books. This was information he had collected from their battles and training. He had created effective training for them based on this. Then he added that if they wanted to become stronger, then they should better stick to his notes. Then, one member of the squad apologized to him and said that this was the magic that she didn't know yet. He approached her in surprise and began to look at her. Then he replied that he wrote this because he knew that she would be able to study it in the future. But she was right. He would tell her the details of the study later. She thanked him. Then another member of the team asked for an explanation. He held a map in his hands and said that this was a map of the dungeon where they were going, and hidden passages were drawn on this one that they had missed. The protagonist asked if it was done poorly. Besides, the map was convenient. They asked him how he was able to draw a map of places they had never been to. He put his finger to his mouth and whispered that it was a secret. He was no longer in the hero's party. Then they apologized to him. He was confused by this. Then they added that they didn't know he had been doing this all along. Then another member of the team came up to him and she also began to apologize, because what he had given them was the result of his hard and persistent work. He raised his hands up and replied that it was not so. Then the squad leader, scratching the back of his head, replied that he could not believe that not only did he work harder than him, but he also wiped the nose of an old man like him. This deserved respect, and he also apologized to him. The protagonist stood there confused and asked, "What are you guys doing?" They should raise their heads, because that is not what he meant. He just wanted to give him a gift in honor of his departure. That's all. Then the squad member answered him, "Does he understand that with his gift, he made them all look like fools who don't understand anything?" Then she asked him if he had some kind of plan for this. Then another one of the squad apologized to him and added that he would ask him one more time if he wanted to join their squad. To which he immediately replied that he refused. Everyone was upset about this. Then he added that that's how it was, because it was stupid to kick him out and then immediately accept him back. He understands the main character. MC turned his back on them and waved his hand and said that now he wanted them to defeat the Demon Lord, and then he started running. They shouted after him for him to stop and at least say goodbye properly. But he didn't care. He ran through the streets. He received a notification that there were 10 seconds left until the transfer. He climbed the bell tower and counted the last seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2. He put his hand to the side and said that no one will see him here. He received a notification that there is 1 second left, and then the transfer to another world is made. He began to be sucked into a spatial funnel. Then a notification came that the transfer to another world has begun. He appeared in a hall with doors. He answered that he has not been here for a long time. Then he began to stretch and added that a year or so. Then he sat down on a chair and said that this time it was hard, but he managed. Then he turned to the ball that now it is his turn to keep his promises. MC began to demand to return him home. The main character sat at the table, leaning on his hand. He said that there was no one, but he did not expect a different outcome. He lived a quiet and peaceful life until he was called to this place. There was nothing in this place except 1 book and 1 door. He then stood in front of the door and asked where it led. He did not understand what to do. Naturally, he read the book, but it was terribly boring. It said that after he entered the door once, he would become the hero's companion. They would trust each other for a long time, but only in exile would the conditions be met, and he would return to this place. Besides, a door that had been opened once could not be opened twice. He then furiously closed the book and said that he did not understand anything. But now he stood with his arms outstretched in front of the doors and said that he had finally traveled to 100 other worlds. And this was for him. He had about 100 years. He had been exiled from each world. He was free. Then he turned to the ball. How could he not understand? He had finally finished everything, so why not at least make it festive? Then he was told that God had nothing to talk about with him. He sat down and looked at the reflection on the floor and thought that at least he was not getting old here. If he worked out in the room, he would be able to improve his physical fitness. If he eats a lot, he will get fat. But as soon as he returns to this place in the white world, everything will reset to its original values. In other words, he's always a little over 20, even though he has put more than 100 years, like an adult in a child's body. Then he put his hand to his chin and said that, if you think about it, he's going home like this, and his parents have long been dead. No one will recognize him anymore. Then he laughed. Then he asked, he did everything, right? What else is needed? He asked to fulfill his promise to send him home. Then a ball lit up behind him. After all, every time he was banished from another world, the crystal ball began to glow and gave him 1 skill. He calls this the skills of the banished. The wanderer's box is the thing of a lonely wanderer who traveled between worlds. Everything that the owner puts inside is preserved even after the transition to another world. Automap, the place where he was, is recorded on a map that only he can see. Rainbow glasses, to see the sleeping talent in people. Copies and forgeries, to copy and reproduce what he saw once. It was because he had all these skills that he could always easily join the hero's party. But every time, he was banished. But since the ball lit up, it means it finally wants to give him the ability to return home. He walked up to the ball and then put his hand on it. Then he asked in confusion, is this a joke? He was given a one-time ability? What should he do with it? In his entire journey, he had never received a one-time ability. He said that this was a very valuable ability in general, so why would he use it now? Then, in the distance, a door began to emerge from the floor. He squinted and asked, what was there? A ripple in space? Had a door really appeared? After all the doors always appeared next to the last one, but never in the opposite direction. At that moment, the protagonist began to run towards the door. When he approached the door, he saw a number. Door 000, leading to the beginning. It had finally happened. He would be able to return to where he had been taken from 100 years ago. He reached for the door handle and thought, 100 years, does time flow in other worlds, like in his? How much time had passed in his world in these 100 years? What if no one had survived there in 100 years? Then he turned to God and said that he had dedicated 100 years to him, although he thought that he had expressed himself incorrectly. Then he said that he had stolen 100 years from him. Without explanation, reason, purpose, or even meaning, he simply continued to do what he was forced to do. Then he started yelling at him to come and talk to him, just once. Then he asked, or did he want him to use that skill right then and there? And where was his reward for his efforts anyway? Send him away, with nothing at all? Then, a notification came that the god had nothing to talk about with him. And then a book appeared. He walked up to it, then leaned over and said, is this the same book as the first time? Does he want him to read it? He opened the book and started reading. It said that the numbers under the door number indicate the amount of time that has passed in his world since he got here. Then he looked at that door in surprise and asked, is that true? It was 0000. Does that mean he will come back to the time he was kidnapped and locked here? Will he go home on the same day? He started trying to open the door, but nothing worked. He thought, why isn't it opening? Then a box flew at the back of his head, after which he leaned over to it, holding his head, screaming, what the hell? After which he opened the box, and there was a key. He took it in his hand and asked, the key? Also in this box, it said that in memory of the ideal Banished. MC happily said, wow, I have never seen such an ugly congratulation in my life. Then he began to read the book. It said further that he will be able to open any door in this world, which he has already visited once. He will be able to visit it again. In such a transition, not considered banishment. Use the key again on any door in this world, he will be able to return back. The key will break, and the door 000 will open to his world, the world that he so desires. Then a notification came that we will see how it all ends. He thought that he does not like all this. If he goes to another world and does not come back from there, then he will never be able to return here and go to his world. He grabbed his head and said that he didn't understand anything, but if the condition for passing was banishment again, he would go crazy. He just needed to choose the right world and open the door there. He thought that he would choose the easiest world, find a door there, and go back. Well, now, it seems to him that everything is too easy. Then he started walking around all the doors and thought about which one to go into. Then he came to his first door to his first world. He went there without any knowledge and understanding of joining a group of heroes. Under normal circumstances, he would have never been able to join. He only had basic guard skills then. But thanks to one banished skill that was given to him immediately after he got here. Because of this, he got to the hero every time. But this was another problem. He did not have any strength or ability to fight next to the hero. Fearing that he would not be able to fulfill his duties, that he would remain there forever, he began to cling to any opportunity to help them, just so that they wouldn't kick him out. Negotiated for a hotel, carried things, obtained information, and many other small errands. But honestly, he does not know how the three of them treated him. Then came the notice that for a year and a half, they treated him as a comrade. He wondered what happened next. He paid attention to the numbers on the door. He asked, 10 years? In 10 years, they definitely defeated the Demon Lord. He thinks that now there is a good and peaceful world. Then he said that he decided everything. Since he can choose any world, so why not choose the most peaceful of them? Besides, he was forced to go there for the first time. As they remember, horror takes hold. Then he extended his hand, holding the key to the door. If you ask him if he liked it there, then, of course, the answer will be negative. He has many painful memories, but sometimes it was fun. He opened the door and started to walk in. A memory came to him. He covered his face with his hand from the bright light. He had entered another world, where it all began. He stood on a hill and looked around. Then he asked, is it the same as the first time? Damn, he completely forgot about the key. It would be bad if he lost it. Now that he was back here, he was starting to remember everything. Then he looked closer and said, great, there was still a city there. Then he added, which meant the Demon Lord had definitely been defeated, and there shouldn't be any strong monsters here. But his ass sensed something was wrong. At that moment, a huge monster started to appear behind him. He turned his head back and said, he knew it. The monster launched an attack at him, but the protagonist was able to dodge it in time. Then he looked at it again and asked, why the hell is it so big? And what is it doing here? Then he used the Wanderer's box and said that he would practice on it. He took out a sword from there. He held it in his hands and admired it, saying that he could use the skills of the Banished one here, which he did not know at that time. Then he asked, how about this? He used a stone body. The snake went to attack him and could not do anything about it. Then the protagonist said that he is not that strong since he cannot bite through his body. Then he asked, what will he do next? The monster used magic. The protagonist asked, magic? Then he used soap magic and said that he was immune to magical and physical attacks. Then he ran to attack and shouted that it was time to finish. He was able to successfully defeat the monster. Then, he said that this was interesting, and should he stay here a little longer? The protagonist walked along the path and said that looking at all these places, he was overcome with nostalgia. Usually, he was obliged to join a party of heroes and work in pairs with them. But now he does not need anything, and he is finally on his own. Besides, the Wanderer's treasury was still full of gold. He put his hands on the back of his head and said that he could even live well now. Then he put his hand to his chin and added that maybe he should buy armor like the heroes. I wonder if they still sell hero pies there? A strange picture was forming in his mind, but it didn't stop him at all. Then he squinted and looked into the distance and asked, what the hell? And he ran sharply. He thought that this couldn't be. Then he ran to the city and stopped, looking at the destroyed wall. He asked, was the city destroyed? Why? Were they attacked by monsters? But how? The Demon Lord should have been killed by now. Is there a war between humans? Once the Demon Lord is gone, it's obvious that humans will start fighting among themselves. He doesn't understand anything. How could everything be destroyed in 10 years? He picked up a piece of wood in his hand and looked at it, then said that it was too suspicious. And what happened here? Then an old man sitting on the ground shouted at him, asking what he was doing here, and added that there was nothing left here. The protagonist was confused. Then the old man asked, did he get false information that it was safe here? And advised him to be more careful next time, and then he threw him a bag. MC thanked him, and then he thought that he was not here to dig through the rubble. Then he asked the old man, why was the city destroyed? To which he replied that the city was destroyed about 2 years ago. The protagonist asked, what? The old man continued, that it was all the demon lord's army. They wiped this city off the face of the earth. Ed was very surprised. He thought that the demon lord's army was there 2 years ago? Then he approached him and said that he was crazy. Shouldn't the demon lord have been destroyed? To which the old man replied, why? The demon army has been devastating their world for a long time. There is no end to them. Then he asked the main character, what does he even know? Where did he even come from? Then the main character asked him in surprise, what do you mean they have been devastating their world for a long time? And where is the hero? Where did the hero go? The old man turned to him and asked, hero? To which the main character replied, yes, Alexis. He was the prince of this country 10 years ago and was one step away from killing the demon lord. Where is Alexis? The old man answered him that he died at the hands of demons 5 years ago. The main character was very surprised, and for a moment he was confused. Then he laughed with a panicked laugh and asked, hero? Yes, that's impossible. Then he thought that could he have been killed by a creature similar to that huge monster that he met when he appeared in this world? Then the old man stood up and told him not to think. This city is proof of that. If the hero were alive, they wouldn't be in such a sad situation. Then the protagonist came up to him and grabbed him by the shoulders and shouted, what about his comrades? What happened to them? The old man pushed him away and replied that, how did he know? Maybe they died together. He had never heard of anyone remaining alive. Then the old man added that the world is cruel, nothing can be done about it. Their offensive broke through, such is fate. They are ordinary people, they can't do anything about it, and it doesn't matter. The hero, the prince, the commoner, everyone is equal in death. Then the old man threw the bag over his shoulder and said goodbye. He also advised him to leave too before it's too late. The protagonist sat, saddened, thinking why and how. What happened after he was banished? Did they really lose to the demon lord? And now they are all dead? Alexis, Gonzo and Tia. Is it all because of him? Or is there something else? He refuses to believe it, even though he was an extra burden to them, but he tried to act in a way that would make him less useful from the beginning. He does not believe in their deaths. Is the end of this world now predetermined, and is humanity destined to perish? Then he put his hand forward and said, Exile skill appear. Akasha compass. He asked to find him the place where the hero Alexis died. The compass showed him a picture. There was a mountain. The protagonist asked that he was really dead, so that is where the demon lord's castle is? Then he asked to show where Gonzo died. The compass showed the same place. The protagonist thought that it means they died fighting bravely together. He sat there sadly and asked what should he do? Maybe find a good place and make a grave? Then he remembered about Tia and asked the compass to show where she died. Then a notification came that the place of death was not found. The protagonist jumped to his feet and was very surprised. Then he furiously asked a question, where is Tia now? The compass showed him the location. There was some tree shown there. Then he used the skill of the Exile and ran. He also used the dash of Hermes. He ran and thought that she was alive. He ran past a small lake where there were birds. Then he used the ghost acceleration and the timer 59:59 appeared. He ran through the mountains. The timer kept decreasing 51:17, then 35:29, 70:28. He ran in the cave where he dispersed all the monsters. Meanwhile, the army of the demon lord stood and listened to him. He told them to listen to him. Now they will destroy one more human city. After all, their victory is near. They must continue to move forward and kill everyone who gets in their way. Suddenly, unexpectedly, some noise was heard behind them. It was MC running and shouting that he will kill everyone. Damn demons. He scattered the entire army to the sides. So he ran to the right place. He was very tired. He stopped to catch his breath. Then he straightened up and asked, here? Then he asked himself, shouldn't he have brought her a gift or something? Then he started to take out fruits with his magic. Then he said that he definitely needed something to make her praise him. He took out an orange fruit, and he said, just the thing. If he remembered correctly, she liked sweet fruits. He held the basket of fruits in his hand and said, great, this will do. Then he went to the door and thought, what if he was nothing more than another mediocre person to her that they kicked out of a hero's party, and now he was coming to her house? Would she be happy to see him? He put his hand to the door to knock and thought, to hell with it. If I don't try, I won't find out. Then he knocked on the door, and there was silence in response. He knocked again and thought, is there really no one home? Then he leaned his head against the door and apologized and asked if anyone was home. When he didn't get an answer, he broke into the house. He heard some rustling and started covering himself. shouting that everything was wrong. The door was open to begin with. He didn't want to come in without permission. Then, looking back, he saw someone and asked, "Who is there?" Tia thought it was Ed. She was lying on the bed and asked, "Who's there?" Tia turned around and looked at the door and asked, "Is she sleeping?" MC looked up and said, "Tia." She asked, "Is it really him?" The protagonist was looking at her, her golden hair and emerald eyes. Then he answered, "Yes," and said hello to her. She jumped on him and happily shouted his name. She started hugging him, and then the protagonist yelled for her to stop. She was too close, and he asked her not to cuddle. Then she grabbed his cheeks and spread them apart and asked, "Is it really him?" She thought she would never see him again. The protagonist asked her to slow down and asked, "What does that mean? Never see him again?" He held her in his arms, and she told him that no matter who she asked, no one had ever seen him since he left the heroes group, so she thought he was dead. Then he replied that he didn't want her to worry. He had been kicked out of the heroes group a long time ago. He had changed his name and was working in another country. She sat on him and said, "So that's how it is." But in fact, 10 minutes after being kicked out, he was thrown into the white world. Then she added that, in any case, she was glad he was alive, like a weight off her shoulders. Then she said that she looked like she was going to fall soon, to which the protagonist shouted that he was the one who was going to fall soon. Then he sat her down on a chair and said. Then she glanced at the fruit basket and asked, "What is this?" After she had looked at it, she added that these were her favorite fruits, and so many of them. She was very happy with what she saw, to which the protagonist replied that he had brought her a small present. She replied that she was flattered, but there was no bath. The protagonist asked, "Why do you need this now?" She replied that, in case he didn't know, these fruits are thrown into hot water, washed with and eaten, then the skin becomes very soft. The protagonist asked her what the problem was with just eating them. She was very surprised by what she heard. He added that he was not joking. They were already very tasty. Then he offered to peel a couple for her and asked her to believe that they were already very tasty. He took the basket and went to peel it. He started to peel it with a knife, and she called him and then asked why his clothes were so torn, to which he replied that he had simply traveled a lot around the world to see one beautiful sweet lady. She replied, "So that's how it is." Then she laughed. She went to the stairs, said that then she would go and change. Ed cut the fruit in half and thought that nevertheless she was in her pajamas. Then she asked him if he wanted to change together, to which he shouted, no. He had never been popular with girls. But Tia was never shy, pressed close to him, bringing her face to him. He could even feel her breath on him. He cut the fruit and laid it out on a plate. Then he went to the table and put the plate on the table. After which he looked around and said that so this was her house. He began to walk and look around. He went to the curtain, moved it aside, and he saw a sleeping place. In the meantime, she began to descend the stairs and apologized for being late. The protagonist closed the curtain in confusion and told her that it was not what she thought. She stood in front of him and asked him what he thought. Did she look strange? He stood there surprised and thought, why is she dressed like before? He doesn't believe it, because why is she dressed like that? Because of the situation in the world. Many people died, and then suddenly he comes to her house. Isn't it easier to seduce him since there is no choice? Then she called him, and he asked her what she wanted. She stretched out her hand forward and told him to undress. She took out a sewing kit and began to mend his clothes. Then she asked, "Are you sure these are not sour? These are orange fruits after all." He told her that it was true, and she should trust him here. She asked him if he promised that it was tasty. He answered, yes. Then she asked him to feed her. To which he shouted, "No way, let her eat it herself." She looked at him in surprise and said that her hands were busy sewing his clothes. She thought that he would feed her. The main character took a skewer and poked a piece of fruit, then brought it to her. She ate the piece and immediately made a face and said that he was a liar. Well, the main character answered in surprise that he could not be mistaken, and now he would try it himself. When he tried it, he said, "Look, it's sweet." He asked her to stop making fun of him already. She replied that she wasn't making fun of him, or was she no longer allowed to play around and be nostalgic about the old days? Then he asked her for forgiveness. She was very surprised and asked why he gave in so quickly. He answered her, what else should he do? He respects her, but she is making fun of his poor male heart. Although she looks younger, she is an elf. She is over 100 years old. From her point of view, it really was like playing with a small child, so he had long since stopped getting angry or reacting to her jokes and antics. Only she would never understand it. Then he said that she hadn't changed a bit, as expected from the woman who kicked him out. She looked at him in surprise, and at that moment he realized that he had said the wrong thing. Then he began to apologize to her and say that she was not like that. He did not hold a grudge against her and asked her to do anything to him, but just not to hit him. She just said something about the old days, and that's when he remembered. Then she asked him for forgiveness. She realized that she was very sorry, but the protagonist replied that it was his fault and asked her for forgiveness too. Then he stood up and bowed in front of her. She told him that it was her fault. Didn't he come to her to get even with her? He looked at her in surprise and asked what she was talking about. She replied that she was the only one who survived from the heroes group. The protagonist asked her to tell him what happened. She began to tell him that as soon as he left, they tried to find someone to take his place. But no one came. After all, he left when they were almost at the border with the Demon Lord's army. The only reason people wanted to join them was for their own achievements, so that they could later brag that they fought in the heroes group. But would the warriors want to carry the baggage and do anything but fight? In the end, no one stayed with them until the end. They hired 6 people, but they all left them themselves. After them, they did not look for anyone else. Even so, it only lasted for 3 months. The protagonist was very surprised and said that he was an idiot, made a mistake, but they were professionals. She continued to tell them that they were engaged in the science of baggage, and he, not only that, but also helped them with everything. He did the laundry, set up camp, monitored their health, and even cooked for them. The protagonist thought that if he were weak, then they would not have thrown him out, but he will pretend that he did not hear anything. She continued to tell them that they were wrong. His job is really difficult. Even Alexis realized this when he was with others. And then they met one person, and he said that his job is only to carry the baggage all the time, and that's it. If that's what it takes, he should finally hire professionals in this business. Hearing this, Alexis directly told him to go away. The protagonist thought that if he used him as a standard, then he sympathized with him. Then he replied that it meant that none of you even had a normal rest, as he understood. But what she answered that it was exactly like that, and only then did they realize that it was not worth banishing the MC. After that incident, they were not going to hire anyone until one person came to them himself. He asked them if they needed a baggage carrier. He told them that he would help, and even promised to be a guide. Alexis immediately agreed to his offer, and they continued on their way in this composition, and that person with them. Soon they approached the border of the land of the Demon Lord, and as soon as they stepped over, they were horrified. Although they were prepared for this, but that person ran away. With all their equipment, healing potions, and artifacts, he dissolved in blue light. The main character asked, "Teleportation crystal?" She replied, "Yes, that's right. They had prepared it in case of an emergency retreat." They shouted at him that he wouldn't use it, would he? And not rush to leave the battlefield. She asked, why did he run away, and why did he betray them? But the protagonist furiously replied that it meant he was going to do it from the beginning, and joined them to lure them into a trap and escape. Tia replied that she didn't know, but they had no choice but to fight, but the demons surrounded them from behind. In case one was destroyed or lost, they hid one more crystal. It was in Alexis's armor, but it was meant only for him. After all, he is the last hope of humanity. She told him to go away, but the hero is a man chosen by the gods, and the prince of their country. She must protect him at any cost. But the hero handed her the crystal and asked her to go away and abandon them. After all, what kind of hero would he be if he left the battlefield? She took the crystal and left. After all, he had decided to be a hero until the very end, even if his choice put all of humanity at risk. Well, he was the one who should have survived, not her. Tia began to cry heavily. The protagonist began to pity her and stroked her head. Then he asked her if she had calmed down. She answered that she had and asked him for forgiveness, then thanked him. Then she continued telling the story, that she was then transported to a secret room in the castle of Notland. There they asked her what happened to the prince. Why was she here? After all, only Mr. Alexis could be saved this way. Then his father came to her and asked what happened to his son, and she told him the same story as the protagonist. He replied that she had gone and hidden in the wilderness, and he would tell everyone that the hero's team had been killed on the demon borders. That's what he said. The protagonist was confused. It was bad, but he had no other choice either. He weighed the future of the world and the lives of his comrades and chose the latter. This is very similar to him, but as a hero, he did the wrong thing. But he always thought about his comrades first, so his choice is obvious. The protagonist said that he respected his son's last decision. Tia continued. Because of this, she could not participate in the next 3 adventures in the demon world. The protagonist asked, expeditions? She was very surprised and asked if he did not know anything. How far did he live? Allied countries sent troops to the demon lands 3 times to save Alexis. Even when they knew that they couldn't break through the demon lord world with an army, they tried everything for a ray of hope, but since there were no heroes left to fight, they failed. Then she looked at him and said that if you think about it, her location is a secret, and how did he find her? The protagonist scratched his head and said that he had an item that allows him to search for people wherever they are, so he became interested in where they are and what they are doing. But even with this help, he did not find Alexis or Gonzo, so they are dead. Well, she replied that she understood, so they are definitely dead. He asked her for forgiveness, to which she replied, what? Thank you for everything. At least she was able to come to her senses. After all, it is impossible to survive against an entire army of the demon lord. Then she shouted that everything is ready. She showed him the mended cloak and asked how he liked it. Isn't it cute? He looked at the cloak and was very happy, and replied that it was very cute. She walked up to him and gave it to him. Then the protagonist turned around and asked where the vibration was coming from. Was it really outside? He put on the cloak and ran outside. Tia tried to stop him. When he went outside, a monster was standing in front of him. He asked what the lesser dragon was doing here. Had he gotten lost or had he come down from the mountain on purpose? She ran up to him and asked why he had gone outside. He looked at her in surprise and asked what she meant by why. She asked him to go back into the house, and so that he wouldn't worry, she would deal with him herself. The monster was ready to attack, and the protagonist was also going to attack, saying that no matter how strong he was easy for him. Tia grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and threw him back. Then the dragon began to attack. She used a water wall, and the protagonist looked at it in surprise. Tia said that she would never let anyone die again, and she would protect him. She began to recite a spell, a silver moon blade that controls the wind, and paint the moon green. 1. The 6 roof spirits that everyone can see become the hardness that strikes her enemies. Gather together and fight her enemies, she calls lunarity. 3. Faceted stream. And then the dragon was killed. The protagonist was very inspired by this and asked, wow, with 1 hit. This is great, what a great girl she is. Then he said how she did it so perfectly. Not only his scales but his hands cut perfectly exactly the same amount since their last meeting. Then she asked him to leave. He went to her, took her hands, then asked, what happened? She felt sick and said that she wanted to brag to him, but it seemed she overdid it. She was fine. The protagonist replied that she was clearly unwell. She said that she just didn't remember the last time she fought. Then she looked at him and smiled. She even dressed up nicely for him. Did he like it? The protagonist was confused and didn't answer. Then she called him into the house. She was going up the stairs and added that she was nervous again. What a shame. Then she closed the curtain and asked him not to peek. The protagonist looked at her and thought, well, okay, she was in the heroes group. She must definitely be fine. The protagonist went outside and remembered her words for him to leave. Then he scratched his head and said that he needed to figure this out first, and then he would think about it. Then he sat down and added that he could try to put it in his bag. Although no, he didn't think it would fit like that. Or should he first chop it into pieces and then try to stuff it into his bag? Then he decided to check on Tia. He looked into the house and started calling her, but she didn't answer him. Then he went in and started asking where she was. He looked up and called her again, but she didn't answer him. Then he started to climb the stairs and shouted that he was going up. He looked in and was very shocked because she was lying and not moving. He ran up to her and asked what happened, and why was she lying down? He looked at her skin and asked what was this. Her body starts to turn black from the heart and all over her body, from the neck to the arms, from the waist to the legs. He thought, what is happening to her? It's like a patch of dead skin. She quietly asked him to cover her with clothes. After a while, she came to her senses, and he asked her, is she better? To which she replied, yes, she is much better. She thanked him and asked him not to think. She was not trying to hide anything from him. It's just that when she fought with Alexis and the others, she used a secret elven technique so that everyone could survive. This allows you to dramatically increase the power of magic by mixing life magic. The protagonist asked, magic with life? So the price for such tricks is her life? But just recently everything was fine. What happened? Why did she suddenly? She was scared by his scream and hid under the blanket. He screamed. Did she waste her life on a lesser dragon? She laughed a little and said, yes. She did not want him to be killed. That's why she overdid it a little. The protagonist sat and thought, what did she think that he would be killed? After all, he had not told her anything yet. Then she sat down on the bed and said that she did not have much life left for such magic. So these clothes are the only thing that somehow helps her stay alive. With the help of clothes, she can take magic from the trees around. It helps her. If she takes it off and uses magic, her life will not be enough and she will die. The protagonist put his hand on her shoulder and asked why she took it off at all. She apologized to him and added that she was very happy to see him and just wanted to repeat all the peaceful days they once had. But it seemed she had screwed up again. She took off her clothes and used forbidden magic. That magical beast must have noticed her that way. The protagonist said that the dragon had come to them for her. The protagonist began to blame himself for being useless. Is this really his price for his self-confidence in the strength of others? She looked at him in surprise and then asked what was wrong. He thought that why did he decide to avoid her in the first place? He just wanted to make sure that Tia was safe. She put her hand on his face and asked him not to make such a sad face. Then she put her head on his head and added that she might have lived a short life according to the elven marks, but she lived for others and did not regret anything. She met wonderful friends and saw the protagonist again, and that was all she needed. The protagonist started screaming and asking her not to say that, because he didn't come to her to see her die. Then the vibrations came again and he realized that they were already here. Tia asked him to leave here, to which he replied, no. Then he asked her to listen to him, because he may have remained the same in appearance, but everything is far from true. He will tell her the truth. His appearance and body have not changed at all since the last time they met, because he was returning again along the timeline to the very moment when he came to that white world. Then he continued that. After that, he left the group, worked hard on himself. I got a lot of experience. After all, over the course of 100 years, he managed to travel hundreds of worlds, he met many people, trained with them, so he is no longer the same person he was before. And he continued, saying that he has been through a lot, and she does not even imagine how much stronger he has become. And that is why now it is his turn to protect her. Meanwhile, many monsters have gathered on the street. The protagonist went downstairs and started to go outside. Tia was shouting after him to leave here, to which he replied that she should not worry, because he would never leave her again. He turned to her and promised this. Even in this situation, she tried to protect him. All he can do for her is save her from countless magical beasts. He cannot resurrect the heroes and the others. He cannot bring her life back. Meanwhile, Tia tried her best to go to him and stop him. And he had already defeated many monsters and said that he would not let any more friends die. He used magic and filled his sword with blood and finished off the last monsters. Tia went outside and was very surprised. The protagonist asked, "Miracle?" Then he thought that the ability is actually very valuable to use it until the last minute. If he is not mistaken, he has a new skill. In his entire journey, he has never received a one-time ability. What if he used it here? Would he be able to start all over again? Tia began to remember a fragment of the past that she called the protagonist into her room. When he looked in, he asked why she called him into her room. After which, she gathered the whole group and began to scold him, saying that she was disappointed in him. She never thought that he would do such a thing. Then she asked him for forgiveness and added that he would no longer travel with them. Alexis then said that he didn't understand why they would come up with such a plan just to get rid of him. To which she replied that if she had not done this, he would have followed her anyway. She could not protect him anymore. She is sure that he hates her now, but all this is for him. She asked him to live a good and peaceful life. Then the memory ended and the protagonist turned to her and said that he was done and asked if she believed that he could protect her now. She asked him when he became so strong. He replied that he trained a lot after the banishment. Then he jumped to her and added that something like that. Then she asked him if he could carry her to the border of the demon domain. If not, then no big deal. To which he replied that she should not worry, he would do anything for her. He asked her to just trust him, and she thanked him. He wasn't even going to ask what was going on, because he already understood her desires. He tied her to his back and asked if it hurt her. Maybe a little shaking, but she should somehow hold on there. She replied that everything was fine, and asked to let her know if something was wrong. All he wanted then was to fulfill Tia's wish. She said, "Well, let's go." They started walking through the dead demons, and after a while they arrived at the place. He asked her, "Here?" She answered, "Yes," and asked him to put her down. She stood up and said that this was where Alexis gave her the teleportation crystal. She didn't think she could come back here again and thanked the protagonist. Then she went to the pile. She touched it and asked if they could see it. Ed brought her here, and he had become much stronger. He was able to get through the demon lands alone. She sat down on the ground, leaning on this pile. Then she added that she thought the protagonist was stronger than Alexis. Then she asked the protagonist if he remembered that when they banished him, who was thinking about him all the time. She didn't want the protagonist to die. He was weak compared to them. He came to her and sat next to her and replied that he knew about it. Then they looked at the sky, and she said that she never thought that he would become so strong. If they had not banished him then, would they all be able to look at the sky together now and see in it a world without demons? Then she thanked him for bringing her here. She laid her head on his shoulder and said that she wished she could fulfill his promise too, to which she did not answer, so that he would not worry, because his wish would soon come true. They held hands. She asked him what his wish was. He answered that he had not been home for a very long time. She agreed with him, and added that he could go to her house. Her mother would be glad to see him again. He asked, "Really?" To which she answered that of course, but first she would need to buy a couple of souvenirs. For example, a bow for her father and a dress for her mother. She thought she would like the pink one. Then he answered that if he came home with money, someone would definitely want to take it away. Then he would have to ask her for help. Then he replied that with his skills as an exile, he could definitely fix everything. He could destroy the waters of the demons and ask for a noble title for it, or even become the ruler of the kingdom. Tia took her last breath and dropped the flower. She died. The lives of the people dear to him came to an end. Once he believed that life would get better, and the world would sparkle with bright colors for him again, but it did not happen. He sat back and said that this was really God's plan. He worked hard for the last 100 years for what? For everything to end like this? Why was he given all these skills then? He would have been happy with any good outcome, but it never happened. He raised his hand and said that he would fix everything, and even if he had to go through his entire journey again. He used the exiled skill Infinity, and immediately a bright beam appeared. He got back to the white world. There he asked, where is he? A table? A chair? Is this a room? Why is it all white? Is he sleeping? Then he got up and started looking at everything. He was in a panic, screaming that this was not a dream. Where the hell is he? How did he end up here? Was he kidnapped while he was sleeping? Or did he die? Then he put his hand on his head and said, okay, he needs to calm down and think it over. After all, he was just walking and killing parasitic moles, nothing unusual so far. Then he had lunch and went into the forest to set up camp for the night. It turns out that nothing worked out. Then he turned around and saw a door, and he asked, why is it here? Then a book fell on the table and he got really scared. He turned around and asked, was this here all along? He picked it up, read it all, and said, is that so? So he was taken from his world and brought here, and if he wants to go back, he needs to join the hero squad in 100 worlds, train him and get him expelled, all clear. He put the book on the table and said, it's a funny condition, but now he understands everything. Then he started screaming, spreading his arms out to the sides, that he doesn't want to. And why was he called here? What did he do? And why should he help the heroes? He doesn't want to deal with them anymore. Then the ball lit up. He was really surprised. Then he said the book said that if he touched it, he would gain special powers. He thought, holy shit, it's glowing brightly. Then he screamed, screw it, he accepts the conditions. He put his hand on the ball and screamed. All he has to do is touch it, right? Then he asked, what? It's projected directly into his head. A skill to make sure he meets the hero? At least now, there won't be any problems with the hero. Then he asked, what's this? He doesn't understand anything. His memories started coming to him. A large amount of information is popping up right in his head. Are these his memories? Everything that happened to him? He had already experienced all these moments, but this simply couldn't be. It doesn't stop, he screams. Enough. Someone tells him that he didn't give up or that he can fix everything. All his memories come to him. He experiences it in one instant. His last memory came to him how Tia asks him what his wish is, after which he fell to the floor and asked his wish, and he started laughing. Then he said that it was funny, he outsmarted himself. He sat down and wiped his forehead with his hand. With the help of the Infinity skill, he returned to the past. He didn't think such skills existed. Considering all this skill was able to fool even God himself. He was given a second blessing. He now has all the memories and skills that he collected sometime in the future. With this help, he will need to go through hundreds of worlds again. But that skill is gone. He may not have a second chance to return. But this is enough for him. He will cope. He will become even stronger. After all, he has already gone through this path once and will not allow a bad ending again, where Tia and the others die. He went to the door and shouted that he will bring peace to his home, and everyone will meet a happy ending. He opened the door and began to enter it. Now he will start all over again. He is back in the original world. Alexis was conducting a selection for an assistant who will carry the luggage. One of the candidates shouted at him and asked why he can't accept him. He is strong enough to fight. Alexis answered him that he can hear him perfectly well, so he asks to be quiet. Then he added that they don't need a strong man like him now. His job is just to carry luggage. Is that him? At that moment, two girls were talking, and she said, look, the hero is there? The second one answered, I wonder if that person came to him to join them? It seems he is already the third. Maybe she should try her luck too? In response, her friend said that she was a fool. They would never take her into the group. Besides, if she was thinking of seducing the hero now, then it would be better to forget about it. She asked her why she was revealing her cards in front of everyone, after which the hero turned in their direction, and she said, look, the hero is looking at her. The friend asked if he was really looking at her. Maybe he was looking at his friend? In the meantime, the main character came up to him and greeted him. He heard that he needed a squire. Would he mind if he also fought? Alexis was confused, looking at him. He asked who he was. The crowd was talking and asking who it was. The hero was clearly having a hard time. This was already the fourth person today who was trying to join their group. They had never seen him here before. The protagonist thought he had managed to interest him. Then he replied that it was nice to meet him. He was Ed, a wandering adventurer. In his first playthrough, he clung to the hero and begged him to let him join him, and then Tia helped him a lot. She stood up for him. But now it seems like a very bad idea to him. After all, the squire can't even dictate where the hero should go. The hero asked him what he wanted to say, that he can fight with the luggage? This is a serious statement. The protagonist replied that he can even defeat him with this thing in his hand. He took a plate of meat and added that if he does not believe it, then you can try. On the other hand, completely ignoring the events of the first circle is a big risk, so you just need to agree on double work and for this, he needs to make Alexis acknowledge him. The hero hit the table, and it shattered into pieces, and said, "Let's check," and added that if he does not drop it, then he is accepted. The protagonist suggested to start already. The tavern owner was shocked. The protagonist answered that he could start first, and asked him to tell when he was ready. Alexis answered that he is ready. He went to attack him with a fork, but the protagonist was able to block the attack with a sword. MC answered that it was very close. Alexis said that his skills are amazing, he is a funny guy, and suggested to finish quickly. He does not want his food to get cold. The protagonist, smiling, looked at him and said that he had better give up then, or he will have to order new food. The hero laughed and began to carry out 2 attacks, but the protagonist was again able to block with a sword. The most logical thing is that it is easiest to test him in personal combat. That is his job. The hero is strong, and he must prove his strength to everyone because only he can defeat the demon lord. Hope for all mankind. If the protagonist wants to join the hero's party as his adventurer squire, then he needs to prove his strength. This will be more obvious to everyone. Even if he himself is against it, his allies will be obliged to accept him. In the meantime, they moved to the roof and began to fight there. The hero asked him what he was going to do. The hero answered that his food was getting cold. He did not just want to be a squire who carried luggage and their faithful comrade. Then he added that, "Isn't it time for the hero to fight at full strength?" Alexis answered that he was indeed right. It was time to finish. He grabbed his sword and ran to attack. The protagonist was able to successfully block another attack. Alexis said that he was surprised because he was able to block the blows of his sword. Then he asked how he did it, to which the protagonist replied that it was a secret and he just wasn't fighting at full strength. The hero said, "That's how it is." He made another attack and the main character flew to the side. And yet, he really is a hero. His skills are insanely strong. The protagonist thought that just his sword, which he bought on the way here, was almost broken. He glanced at his sword, which was all cracked, and thought that it was time to finish. Then he remembered the plate of meat, but it was too late. The meat was falling down. The protagonist was very worried about this. Then he looked at the protagonist and said, "His posture, is he really about to make an attack, a real sword strike?" Alexis used a moonbeam. A beam flew at the protagonist. He thought that if he used invisibility and then dodged, he could counterattack, but he couldn't do that. The hero must see him not only as a squire but also as a comrade. He would have to strike with his skills that he had gained while going through other worlds. He must repel the blow. He must hit exactly like him. The protagonist jumped up and parried the blow, shouting, "Take that!" Alexis looked at him and said that it was pretty good. The protagonist, after his blow, flew to the side and then landed successfully on the ground. Then he looked at his broken sword and said that he somehow managed. Then a crowd of people surrounded him and shouted that he was amazing and he was very cool, and they saw for the first time that someone fought on equal terms with the hero. Those girlfriends were standing and talking. She said that the hero was cute, but this guy was also not bad. She whispered to her that this is the type of guy she likes, and asked if she wanted to go up to him and ask his name. Then one guy from the crowd said that he was Ed. That's how he introduced himself. Even a commoner like him can understand that a great future awaits him. They asked this guy who he was and why he looked like he was rummaging through the trash. He answered that his name was, but before he could finish, he was hit. And they shouted that, "Mr. Alexis, an idiot, come here." The main character asked him what he was even thinking. If he hadn't parried the blow, he would have died. Alexis apologized to him and added that he never thought about such an outcome. The main character was shocked by what he heard. Meanwhile, Gonzo came up to him and replied that this was their hero. Then he added that it was one thing when the hero fought at full strength, and another when some upstart wanted to fight him. The protagonist was. Turning around, he was surprised. Then he introduced himself as Gonzo, and they would now be acquainted. The protagonist asked, "Gonzo is a martial artist?" Then Gonzo said that he should not be offended by Alexis. Although he fought him seriously, he watched closely. If something went wrong, he would protect him. The protagonist answered that everything was clear. Then he asked how he knew him. The protagonist answered that this was a stupid question. After all, he is the strongest martial artist in the world. His healing hands are legendary. Gonzo laughed and said that his muscles are really amazing. The hero also laughed at the fact that he is a frontline healer. Then someone from the crowd asked them what they were doing. She left them for only a couple of minutes. Then she turned to Alexis and asked him to look at what he had done. He replied that he did nothing. He just showed a little to an ordinary adventurer the difference in their style. Tia asked what a little meant. He used a special technique on him. Then she turned to Gonzo and asked why he was standing there. Why didn't he stop him? He answered her, "Why? If the hero always has everything under control." The protagonist must be hearing such a dialogue for the first time, but he is still overcome with nostalgia for those times. Then Tia turned to the protagonist and asked how he is. Is he even safe? not injured. Then she apologized and said that she is Lunarity, an elf and a spirit summoner. She travels with Alexis. MC answered her that he is Ed, a squire. I am an adventurer. She told him that it is nice to meet you. He would really like to see her smile again. The protagonist began to cry. Tia began to worry and ask him why he is crying. Did she do something wrong? Or did Alexis do something to him? Then she turned to him and asked him to tell her everything. And what else did he do to him? He said, "Stop making false accusations. He did nothing like that to him. He didn't even really talk to him. He thinks it's all about his attractive appearance." Tia shouted that she should stop talking nonsense. The protagonist replied that that wasn't the point. He was simply remembered by the whole group, the hero, and he even felt a little awkward. When else would he get such a chance? Tia was confused and asked, "Does this mean it is her fault?" She asked for forgiveness and asked how she can improve. The protagonist wiped away his tears and replied that if she didn't mind, she could just call him by name again. Tia was confused and asked, should she call him by name? Okay then. She called him by name, and the hero screamed, yes. He was very happy about it. Tia added that he was so funny. Even though you just called him by name, for some reason he was very happy. The hero leaned against the wall and said that he couldn't blame him for crying, but he asked him to look at the food that was lying on the ground. As he understood, the so-called luggage that he was guarding was damaged, so he couldn't accept him into their group. The protagonist was furious and started shouting that the meat was being cut because of his technique. Alexis approached him, folding his hands in front of his chest, and said that it was his food. Tia approached them and asked, doesn't he want to take Ed? Does he understand how strong he is? And asked to see that even people are angry with him. A crowd of people shouted that he used a special move, and he stood up, and they all saw it. He really used it. Alexis asked why she wanted him to join them so badly. They had enough fighting force. She put her hand to her chin and thought for a moment, then replied that she felt they needed him. Alexis asked if he wasn't enough. Tia turned to Gonzo, asking him what he would say. He put his hand to his chin and said that he really didn't care. But if he really was going to carry their luggage and also fight, his lot was too hard. Accept the job of carrying luggage, then Alexis would definitely agree to take him. The protagonist, clenching his teeth, said that he wanted the master to build up his muscles at night with his techniques. Then he took the sign where 10 was written and shouted that he was accepted. Then he added that he would take care of him. Alexis said that he agreed. He was good with a sword. Apart from him, he was probably the strongest here. He threw him a coin and the main character caught it successfully. Then he added that he only needed someone to carry the luggage. If he could handle the job, he had no complaints about him. He pointed his finger at the store and added that he had one more try. He should buy everything he considered necessary and bring it here. If he wants this job so much, then he should show him everything he can do. The protagonist answered that he can handle it and he should be trusted. Gonzo wished him luck. Tia said she would keep her fingers crossed for him. This is his first assignment from the hero. Protagonist held coins in his fist, and then he said that he had 10 silver coins in total. He saw one coin and asked, what is this? Gold coin. He thought how he could get by with these 10 coins, and he gave him more? So, now he trusts him more than the first time? If so, then there must be some other influencing factors for this. Tia came up to him and said that she gave it, that she had seen a lot in this city, but did not know that there was such an area here. They were walking through the market, and the protagonist wanted to buy something for him. MC asked Tia what she was doing. He addressed her in a respectful manner. She approached him and asked why he started addressing her respectfully, and asked him to address her as before. The protagonist was confused and answered that he only wanted to show respect to his elders. She asked him again not to address her like that. He answered, okay. Then he asked her why she followed him, to which she replied that she was just curious, so she followed him like a little tail. He asked, but isn't she afraid to follow a guy she's seeing for the first time? She replied that she isn't, especially when that guy is so strong that he even fights the hero on equal terms. Then she approached him and whispered a secret. She's not in the hero's group for her pretty face. She's quite strong too. He replied, confused, that he understood her. She asked what was wrong with him, and if he was okay. He thought that she was really sociable, but with a stranger she was very shy. Time was definitely rewound. Did she still have memories? He stood in the passage and looked at her. Meanwhile, Gonzo and Alexis remained in the tavern. Gonzo asked if he was sure that sending Tia with this guy was a good decision, to which he replied that he didn't think the guy was up to anything bad, and besides that was Tia's wish. She didn't even listen to him. What freedom-loving elves. Gonzo laughed and said that there was no arguing with that. Alexis was sitting and fixing the table. Then he asked him if he was doing the right thing. Gonzo replied that, of course, everything was right. The tavern owner turned to the hero and suggested that he do it himself. Alexis turned his head back on him and asked what he meant, that he did not know how to repair furniture. The man replied that no, under no circumstances. The hero said that then he could live, he would fix everything, because he had broken it. After some time the table was ready, and he said that for the first time, he thought it was not bad. It was not for nothing that he was a hero after all. People crowded around him and looked at this table, and they were very well insulated. They all thought, how could he do this? Then they came up to this table and shouted that the table was amazing and luxurious. Then he turned to Gonzo and suggested that he go. He is still worried about something. Meanwhile, Tia asked the protagonist, is there something bothering him? To which he replied, no, but some interest still gnaws at him. He asked her to tell him why she is following him into such a wilderness. Tia stopped and began to think. Why? She sat and thought about this question. Then she answered that they, elves, live longer than people. She is already over 100 years old. She has lived too long, so many of her memories have already been forgotten. But does he know that they have very dear memories? And they, the elves, seal it in their souls. If they don't want to lose it, then these memories along with the soul will be reborn. Everything that was put into the soul will stay with them forever. Then she added that she thinks this is the reason, because she saw him. One emotion that she experienced was nostalgia. She saw his face before and remembers everything about him. Memories of him are carved into her soul. If he knows, it is similar to what one calls déjà vu, but for them, elves, it is a little different. The protagonist stopped and then turned to her and asked, does she believe in this too? She answered him that yes, she does. Then she added that she clearly sees what happened to them, and who knows, maybe these memories will someday become reality for her too. Do people have what's called a soul? Is it possible to restore all memories? Tia asked him where they were going. He replied that there was a good place around the corner. They were going up the stairs, and he thought that in her place, he definitely wouldn't be able to restore memories. After all, this is an ability only for her kind. He pointed his finger and said that they should go there. She asked him how he knew these places. But if people have such an ability, then their memories should have awakened. He replied that he was a master of his craft and knew how to collect information well. She was very surprised and replied, amazing. In the meantime, they arrived back. They were standing in front of the tavern where they fought with the hero. They were shocked by what they saw, that the roof of this building had changed a lot. There were angels on it. He opened his mouth and asked, what the hell is wrong with the roof? Alexis replied that they broke it in a fight. He got curious and decided to try to fix it. Then he added that it was easier than he thought. It's all because he's a hero. The protagonist thought it was all because he had strange taste. All the people who were crowded around started shouting that this is what kind of hero they have. He's just amazing. Then he turned to the main character and asked how he was doing. Tia happily started shouting that Ed was great. Then he added that he didn't see any groceries. The main character then dumped a bunch of wrapped food in front of him. Alexis asked what it was. The protagonist raised his finger and replied that, first of all, these were food products. There was enough food there for 10 days, and it could be stored for up to 3 months. And also food for 10 days, which could be stored for a year. He had heard from Tia that they were sent immediately, so he took all the canned goods. Gonzo started asking loudly what kind of bag he had and where it came from. The protagonist glanced at the bag, then he took it in his hand and replied that he found it in some ruins. It can store quite a lot of things. It is very roomy. Alexis asked, is it an artifact? The protagonist replied that he did not know, but it could be. But only he can use it, others cannot. The protagonist thought that of course he lied, as he understood, in any other hands it would not show its properties. Tia was lying on the floor and trying to get into this bag. Then she said that she could not do it. It is a pity. Then she meowed. Alexis asked her not to act like a cat. The protagonist thought that he was once expelled from the hero's party. Excessive caution does not hurt. He only used one of his skills, Exile, Exile's treasure. He places his hand there and uses the ability. He thought what Alexis would say to this. Alexis sat on the bed, put his hand to his chin, asked, and how much can fit in there? The protagonist answered that a couple of 3 bags can fit in there. He can't say for sure. Then he thought that in fact it is unlimited. Tia walked with this bag on her head and then said that they can buy enough for a whole year at once. Then she asked, is Ed great? Alexis asked her why she's so proud of him. The protagonist came up to her and took the bag, and so full that he will now continue. And then there will be an artifact that creates water. Obviously, this also proves that objects bigger than the bag's entrance will still fit in and out. Then he asked Tia, did she tell him? She answered that she said everything. Alexis repeated that their group does not need water. Tia can create water with magic. So why did he buy it then? Tia said displeasedly that here he is scolding his artifact. It cost as much as 50 silver coins. Alexis asked, 50 silver coins? Tia asked, that's expensive, right? But Ed insisted. Alexis sat and reasoned out loud that, on the contrary, it was too cheap. Such artifacts should cost at least 5 gold coins. Tia was very surprised and asked, 5 gold coins? Alexis asked the protagonist if he could ask why, to which he replied that, of course, with this they might never need water. He agreed that they could ask Tia to create water. Gonzo said, that's exactly what you were talking about, so why did he buy it then? Then the protagonist replied that if Tia was injured or sick, then they could forget about water. Alexis and Gonzo agreed with him. Alexis replied that it was too risky to rely on one person in such an important matter, and he forgot that she was also a living being. Tia asked him displeased that she was just a tool. Then Alexis said that he accepted him into the group. Tia asked, now he's going to say that Ed is amazing? He sighed and asked that he would never understand why she was so proud of him. Then he replied that he was amazing and welcome to the hero team. Ed, Gonzo and Tia began to rejoice greatly. They slapped each other on the palms. Gonzo hugged the protagonist and asked, can a good piece of adamantite fit in the bag? He promised to teach him everything he knows. Alexis looked at the main character and noticed that he had also bought himself a new sword. Then he took it in his hand and began to examine it. Then he added that, to be honest, he thought that he would spend most of the money on this. Then he gave him the sword, which is completely out of line with his talent. So why did he buy the cheapest sword? The protagonist replied that he would replace it in another city. Alexis asked, in another city? Then the protagonist added that he had a suggestion. He knew of a good place where they could get used to his fighting style and also go to a dungeon. After all, this was all his cunning plan. After all, he was going through all of this twice. And he knew the events of the entire world for 6 months in advance. Alexis replied that it sounded good. The protagonist smiled and said that that was great. They were riding in a cart. Their journey had begun. Tia looked out into the street and said that there were a lot of chimneys here. Then she asked that these were all blacksmiths? What if they had good weapons for them? Alexis replied that he didn't think so. Tia asked why. Alexis replied that it was because they had a silver mine here, which meant they had to work only with silver. Tia started screaming that that's what Ed was talking about. So, there's a legendary silver knife here that makes food 100 times tastier? The protagonist looked at her and replied that he had never said such a thing. They were sitting in the room. Alexis asked the protagonist to explain what his plan was. The main character stood up and began to say that, in short, the information was from a reliable source that could be trusted. This information said that there were stone worms in the mine. He slammed his hand on the table. Everyone was very surprised and asked, stone worms? He agreed. Stone worms feed on ores and minerals. During the first playthrough, they caused a global crisis as they ate all the silver in the city. And 3 months later, the tunnels collapsed and the city was destroyed. That's why he called them here. Then it would be too late. Alexis stood up and began to approach the window and said that the situation was really serious. But why didn't he report it to the authorities? They immediately sent the knights. The protagonist thought that they could prevent a disaster. Then he laughed and replied that he was funny. Where would he get evidence? The authorities wouldn't trust an ordinary adventurer. That's why he decided to enlist their help. Alexis asked him to wait and added that what treasure was he talking about earlier? Is this mithril? Gonzo and Tia were standing aside and talking. Tia was whispering to him and asking how mithril and stoneworm are connected. He answered that he didn't know. It would be better to ask them. Alexis told him to wait and turned to Tia, asking if she didn't know what mithril was. She replied that of course she did. It amplifies magic well, and it is also very rare. She is right? Then she added that the best enchanted tools and weapons are also made of mithril. She knows a lot. Alexis asked the protagonist to explain to her what it is. The protagonist laughed and told her that she was right, but not quite. Roughly speaking, it is silver that has been exposed to magic for a long time and thereby changed its properties. Tia replied that she understood. So there is a lot of mana in the mine? The protagonist, crossing his arms, said no. If that were the case, why would the rockworm be relevant? Then she said that mana comes from the nearby rockworm. The protagonist said that she almost guessed. He approached her and said in one ear that he would give a hint and asked what the stoneworms fed on. She answered ore. Then the protagonist moved from behind her and asked what kind of ore was here. She answered silver. Then he asked again, what had magical effects on the silver? She answered a stoneworm. Then he said that silver must be heavily saturated with mana before it becomes mithril. And then he asked her where to get so much mana from the worm. That's right, inside the worm itself. In other words, mithril. It's undigested feces from the rockworm. Alexis turned to the protagonist, asked that he wanted to get himself a rockworm in order to mine mithril, but why would he need it? The protagonist replied so that they would have the best weapon. Tia stood there crying, saying, poop. Meanwhile, the mine workers were leaving it, and one of the workers asked, is it okay that they're going home? He replied that everything was fine. Then a man yelled at them, saying that the hero and his team had gone to mine mithril. Why the hell were they leaving work? One of the workers asked him, didn't he know? Didn't the hero tell him? He said to enter the mines before the end of the day. He'll pay for the workday, and honestly, he doesn't know what they're going to do there. Meanwhile, Alexis and his team were walking through the mine. Gonzo asked, "So, this is where the worm lives?" "It's hard to believe, it's pretty quiet here." Alexis replied that if the rumors about the worm are true, he should probably be resting now. MC asked Tia, is she still upset with him? She told him that she thought that mithril was always mined in mines. Then he told her how it really happens. The protagonist apologized and added that he thought everyone knew about it. Tia asked why they didn't just buy mithril. The protagonist replied that if they had a lot of money, they could buy it. And this way they would get it for free and of the best quality. Tia looked at him in surprise and asked, "The best?" Alexis replied that rockworms digest everything in their stomach. As a result, there will be no impurities there. In other words, his feces are the purest mithril, and from such, the best weapons can be made. Tia asked him, "Does he really need another weapon?" He replied that he has a holy sword. Tia said that it was unfair. Alexis asked the protagonist if he was sure they were going in the right direction. The protagonist replied, yes, they are on the right path. Then he used the Exile skill, Akashi Compass. Gonzo said that his thing allows you to locate monsters. It is very convenient. Too bad only he can use it. The protagonist replied that he received it with his bag. He thought that it was true. He is the only one who can use all this. Tia asked him in what kind of ruins he finds all these cool things, to which he replied that it is a secret. In the meantime, they came to a cliff where there was a ladder, and they went down it. Then the protagonist replied that they have arrived. Tia was warmed up and asked, "Have you arrived?" But there is a dead end. Then she asked him, what to say, that the worm is on the other side? Gonzo asked, "What do you mean we need to break through the wall?" It's time to show off his muscles in all their glory. Then the protagonist replied that there was no need to break anything, and asked them to calm down and wait. They were confused. He added that they just needed to wait. Tia asked what he was up to. Gonzo replied that he didn't know. The protagonist walked up to the wall, leaned on it with both hands, raised his leg, and began to swing. Then he used the Exile tax ring reflection. He kicked the wall. They were all confused. Gonzo asked him, what is he doing? Tia shouted, he's gonna break his leg now. The protagonist replied that everything was fine. After all, this skill allows you to accumulate charge for a blow. Tia began to ask Alexis to stop him because he was breaking his leg now. Alexis replied that she should just watch. The protagonist was accumulating charge, and when he had accumulated enough charge energy, he releases it. From his last blow, the whole mine began to shake. They asked him, is it an earthquake? He told everyone to get ready. Alexis added that a worm was about to come out. Gonzo shouted for them to stand behind him. He would stop the worm. They all stood behind him, and he grabbed the worm with both hands and began to stop it. Then he shouted for them to attack. Ed and Alexis ran to attack. Tia began to use her magic, saying, spears of the scarlet sunset, rush like flames, hands of four-fingered spirits, take them and direct your wrath at her enemy. Pierce, tear, burn, destroy. She is lunarity, I call upon his volcanic spear. Meanwhile, the protagonist and Alexis pierced the worm from both sides with their swords. Then the protagonist turned to him, saying that his sword was in his way. Alexis replied that it was his problem. Tia's magic hit the worm, but it was no use. Gonzo shouted for them to look. The worm can't turn around. It starts to run away. The protagonist started running towards the worm and shouted, where is it going? Everyone shouted after him for him to stop, but he jumped into the mouth of this worm. He shouted that he won't let it escape. He said that it's only his. From the inside, he started cutting it into pieces. He used a bloody sword. Tia was very scared for Ed. Gonzo grabbed the worm and tried to keep it from leaving. He shouted that the protagonist was in it. Tia asked him to save Ed. He replied that he was trying. Meanwhile, the protagonist broke through the worm, shouting that it smelled really bad. Alexis replied that it would naturally stink. He himself entered its mouth. The protagonist landed on the ground, stuck his sword into it. Then he answered that he knew, but he didn't think it smelled that bad. Tia ran up to him and hugged him. Then she told him that he was bleeding, and asked, is he hurt? He replied that everything was fine. She didn't have to worry. She asked why he did it. She was very worried about him. The protagonist replied that he wasn't that reckless and would never take such a risk. He was confident in his victory. Then he came to his senses, that she was worried about him. Just like then, nothing had changed. No matter how many times he had lived through it, it never changes. Then he apologized to her, saying that he was truly sorry. He didn't think that she would worry about someone she barely knew. He stood there and looked at her, not taking his eyes off her. Then he added that he just didn't want to disrupt their unnecessary work. The protagonist thought that he needed to become even stronger so that she would never worry about him again. Then he asked to look at him. He was holding mithril in his hands. Tia looked at it in surprise, asking, is this pure mithril? She was very surprised. I realized that it was very beautiful. Gonzo put his hand to his chin and said that such a large piece of mithril was made from this worm. Alexis replied that it was enough for them. But to be honest, was this the first time he saw such a huge piece? And how much would it cost then? Alexis put the piece to his chin and then said that he thought that you could buy a small castle with it. Tia and Gonzo were very shocked. They simultaneously said, an entire castle. Alexis added that such pure mithril would make a first-class weapon. But if there were impurities in the item, it would not be possible to remake it. So they needed a first-class blacksmith to work with such a material. Tia was still shocked from hearing that you could buy an entire castle. Gonzo started counting how many items he could buy to train his muscles. Alexis ordered them to restrain themselves. Then he turned to the protagonist and said that since he knew about the purest mithril, maybe he knew who could work with it, to which the protagonist replied that he thought his blacksmith skills were enough to make anything out of it. Alexis was very shocked by what he heard. After some time, they returned to the city. The protagonist was given a workshop, ran around the workshop and was very surprised. He said that there was a furnace here. The tools were of excellent quality. Then he asked if he could really work there, to which the owner replied, of course. Then he added that under normal circumstances, he would have taken payment even from the hero. But they saved their city, so everything is at their disposal. Alexis replied that there was no need, they would pay them anyway. The owner was very happy to hear this and thanked him. Alexis then turned to the protagonist, saying that he had found a place for him, even willing to agree that he would do something. Only if he failed and wasted the mithril. Then he asked if he understood what he was getting at. The protagonist replied, of course. Then he turned around and started to leave, saying that he should be left alone. Gonzo agreed with him. When he approached the door, he saw Tia. She was sitting and watching the main character. Then he asked her, what did she like about him? After all, when he wanted to join them, only she put in a good word for him. Of course, he knows that she is so soft, but isn't she worrying too much about him? She asked him, does he think so? I wonder why? He smiled and left. Alexis and Gonzo were sitting at the bar and drinking. Gonzo asked him how he could say something like that. The only one who cares about him is Alexis himself. Or is he wrong? For the same reason, he trusted him, and they came to this place. And he also left him the mithril. Considering that he would not trust anyone with such a thing, then he is right. Alexis replied that after he joined them, he watched him for a long time. He wields a sword no worse than Alexis. He has artifacts unknown to him, and also a high level of knowledge about different monsters, their weaknesses. Even he was surprised by this. So he still does not trust him a little, but he is very curious. Gonzo laughed loudly. Well, that's like him. But why doesn't he tell him everything? The protagonist was thinking about how to tell her that blacksmithing is not the most interesting activity to watch. Tia laughed and replied that she liked it because she was not watching the work, but him. The protagonist was carrying materials and was very shocked by what he heard. He replied that she already sees him all the time. She replied, yes, but she wants it that way, because he is capable of everything. The protagonist replied that this is not true. He is not omnipotent. He always omitted important details. Having said this, he looked at his hands. That is why he does not want to make mistakes anymore, because for the second time, he does not want to lose anyone. And with his skills as an exile, he creates the future. He will change the course of history. That is why he will try his best on the weapon that will change the world. Meanwhile, he was being watched. A flying eye flew up to Cyan and greeted him. In response, he replied that he was cramped in this body. The eye added that he had fought. Cyan said that he already knew about the purest mithril. Then he asked, what else? The eye answered him that he had defeated the stone worm. He answered, I see, and then raised his hand. He understood that he should continue to observe then. After all, this is his job as an intelligence officer. But first, he should report everything to the demon lord. But from the protagonist's memories, he carried Tia to the demon border last time. He asked the one who joined, what did he look like? She answered that at first glance he was an ordinary guy and his name was Cyan. Then she filled in that he had a very noticeable nose. Meanwhile, the memory was cut off. While the protagonist was working, Tia fell asleep. She had a dream about how she and he were happily living together. I wonder what this means. After all, they had only recently met. Then she woke up and the protagonist asked for forgiveness, asked if he had woken her up, to which she replied, no, he should forgive her for falling asleep. The protagonist was happy and said that she shouldn't worry. After all, he even burst into tears when he saw her, and from that moment on, she had the feeling that they had known each other for a long time. But even so, being next to him for some reason brings her pleasure and joy. Then she replied that she herself wanted to sleep a little more. The protagonist remained silent and then said that it was very hot here. He grabbed the collar of his t-shirt and remembered that he had taken with him exactly everything he had received during his 100 years of travel, but he could not use it. Otherwise, he would give himself away. That was why he even had to remake his sword. But even so, he could use his memory and skills. Then he began to look at his compass. In the meantime, he was still being watched. Cyan asked the eye, "Is this the one who ruined their plans?" To which the eye replied that it was exactly so. According to his information, he should just be carrying their luggage. The eye replied that this was very suspicious. Cyan added that then why was he doing blacksmithing? He was very strange. The eye screamed that he should be killed. Cyan replied that no, they couldn't do that yet, they had to watch further. Then he stood up and added that he knew that in a human body he was limited in strength, and if they had to fight, people wouldn't know who he was. The eye replied that it seemed to him that he was not acting according to plan. He got very angry and asked, did he forget who he was talking to? He could teach him a lesson. He used metamorphosis and turned into a shadow lizard. Then he added that they would wait and gather information and act when they learned more. The eye wished him luck. Meanwhile, Alexis and Gonzo returned to the protagonist. Alexis asked him if he was finished. The protagonist stood and held a wrapped weapon in his hands. Gonzo asked, did he do this for 6 days? Alexis asked him to tell him that he was sure that he had not wasted the materials. The protagonist replied that of course, since he had created the best weapon. Gonzo started asking him to get to the point. The protagonist asked to wait. Why was he preparing such a pompous speech in vain? Then he showed his compass and replied that with this, but Tia interrupted him and asked, what is this? Can it show the location of monsters? Or what does it do? The protagonist asked to be given a chance to finish telling the story. Cian stood and watched him again. Then he asked, did he finish his weapon? The gloves and silver staff? Did he use up all the mithril? Then he turned to the eye and replied that, although he knew it, he was also curious about what he got. With the exception of the hero's sacred sword, these weapons still shouldn't pose a threat to them, but for some reason he was a little scared. Maybe he should kill them right now? At that moment, the protagonist turned his head and noticed Cian. He was very scared and hid behind the wall. He asked again, did he notice him? Although no, it is impossible to do so from such a distance. Then he asked the eyes to wait for him, to which he replied that he was listening, and he used metamorphosis again, turning into a dark bat. He thought that he should report everything to the Lord. After all, this new guy is very suspicious. He noticed him when even the hero couldn't. What's wrong with his eyes? He was looking at him like he was prey. He was prey? His prey? This should not be possible. Tia threw ice crystals at him with magic. Cian's wings were pierced and he fell to the ground. He thought that he was shot by ice magic? After all, it's impossible to do that at such a distance. Then the protagonist appeared in front of him and greeted him, without adding that he had wanted to see him for a long time. But he didn't think to meet him so soon. Cian thought, how did he know his name? The protagonist asked, was it a secret? Then he apologized, yes, because he already does everything in advance. Then he put his hand to his chin and added that, although there was no point in remaining silent any longer, does he understand? After all, he knows everything much better than he does. Meanwhile, Gonzo and Tia also approached them. The protagonist answered that it was not the right time. Then he added that he was amazed that she hit him from such a distance. Cian asked who he was. This was impossible, so he had been followed all this time? Gonzo approached and put his hand to his chin. Then he asked, so this demon had been following them? The protagonist held his new sword in his hands and answered that it was him. And anyway, what enemy would not use reconnaissance? Tia asked, and what would they do with him? Cian asked them to stop. Then he turned into the form of a man and said that he was not their enemy. He was the ambassador of the demon lord. It looks like the hero is not with them. He added that he needed to talk to the hero. Tia refused him. He sat on his knees and said that he came to talk about a truce. The protagonist replied that Alexis would not come to them. They asked him to do something else, and right now he was evacuating the residence. And what truce anyway? Coming from a demon, it even sounds funny. They asked him what he would do with him? Kill him? According to him, he greatly exaggerates his strength, and he is not even a hero. Then he removed the metamorphosis and turned into a huge monster. He began to shout that they were fools, considered him weak. Now let's see who kills whom next. He shouted that he would kill them all. Tia shouted that he was huge. This is his true form? The protagonist replied that it was good that the hero began evacuating the residence. Gonzo shouted that he was very strong and they should be more careful. Cian began to attack them. Gonzo used an aura shield and was able to stop the attack. Cian shouted, he will not forgive them. Then he added, if they knew how much he hated this form, because it is very tough. But now he cannot be stopped, he will turn everything into dust. He began to carry out an attack, and at that moment the protagonist asked Gonzo, is he sure he can handle the new weapon? To which he answered, easily. He again used the aura shield and was able to stop the attack. Cian was shocked. He asked, a protective spell that covers everything? He could not find it with his intelligence. Tia told Gonzo not to forget that they are here too. Alexis stood from afar and watched them. He said that it was amazing, such power and only thanks to one weapon. What is the power of the weapon created by Ed? When the protagonist handed over the gloves to Gonzo, he was perplexed when the protagonist said that, having collected in a fist, you can even destroy the whole world. Gonzo remembered this and shouted, "What does it mean in a fist?" He hit Cyan on the claw and tore it off. Tia was glad that they were able to tear off his limbs. Gonzo was very pleased and shouted that it was great. Ed really made the best weapon because it was made of gun steel. Gonzo added that he was even stronger now. He wanted to fight him again. Cyan thought that even without the holy sword and the hero, he was still strong. Why did this happen? Is this all his doing? Yes, it is his. He must report everything to the Lord. Then he turned into a worm and began to leave. Gonzo asked that he decided to kill himself. The protagonist answered, no, he decided to escape. He changed his appearance and is trying to leave. Cyan said that if he goes underground, they will not be able to catch him. Tia used stone paths, everything. Then she sat down and asked for forgiveness, and added that she did not know how the protagonist has a keen eye. He cannot be fooled. When the protagonist gave her her new weapon, he said that he had put the power of spirit magic into it, so she was free to use it however she wanted. He then asked her if she wanted him to make it so that she could even cast spells with it. Gonzo asked her what she could do now. She held a staff in her hands and said that it shouldn't have affected her like that. Because of this sword, the unreal becomes real. With Tia's magic, Cyan was caught by a rock. The protagonist approached him and greeted him again. He then asked what he would do next. Although he may not speak, he already knows everything. Does he have any regrets? He may not worry. Even if the protagonist dies, he will still be reborn and take revenge on him once again. Cyan asked, rebirth? What is he talking about? The protagonist replied that he doesn't need to know anymore. He just wants to take revenge on him. Cyan screamed, who is he and where did he even come from? He thought to answer that he is from the future, but he began to say that he came, and before he could say it, he cut him with his new sword. The protagonist then clenched his fist and said that it was over. Tia and Gonzo ran to him and asked about his integrity. The protagonist turned to them and replied that he killed him. Then he put his sword on his shoulder and asked how his swordsmanship and his new sword, not bad, right? Tia and Gonzo shouted in one voice that he had a smug face. Tia asked, could he really win? He was safe and sound. The protagonist advised her to take a closer look. Alexis came up and began to examine it. Then he said that he cut it as if he was running a blade through butter. The lines are very even and smooth. Perhaps he even died without understanding anything. Tia and Gonzo were very shocked. Alexis added that such a technique requires mastery of the sword and has an equally incomparable blade. The protagonist laughed and replied that he still had a lot to learn. Alexis said that he was a hero and this title was far from decoration. And he could swear that among people there was not a single master capable of making a weapon with such characteristics, not to mention in a short time. He worked alone and didn't let anyone near him. He asked to tell who he was and what he was hiding. Hero Alexis, the prince of a great country, chosen by the sacred sword as the only person capable of defeating the Lord of Demons. He is the hope of humanity. His arrogance, corresponding to his status, sometimes bordered on arrogance and coldness. In his first circle, he did not get along with him too much. From his current point of view, his disdainful views were very different from his. To be honest, he hates him. The protagonist asked him what he had to hide. Why did he decide that? The protagonist thought that he seemed to have been exposed. Alexis said that his sword was not just a piece of mithril. He did not understand how it changed its shape and turned into a super sharp blade. The protagonist took this sword in his hands and told him to watch. He turns some of the mithril into wings so the blades become thinner and sharper. The maximum he can make is 12 wings, but the more wings, the easier it is to break. The protagonist thought that this was not magic, but his ability as an exile, a skilled craftsman. Then he added that he did not expect less from the hero. He immediately saw through him. Alexis decided to rephrase, as a blacksmith, what heights does he strive for? The protagonist thought that this is the only thing that worries him. Then he answered that he wants to forge swords. Alexis replied that this is a typical goal. But hasn't he already forged such a sword? Tia asked why he thought so. He replied that if it were a prototype or something else, it would be a different matter. But he said that it was a temporary solution. So under better conditions, he could make a better sword. He asked the protagonist to tell him why he said that his sword was a temporary solution. Why couldn't he create a better one? What did he lack? Materials? Equipment? Under the current conditions, this is less possible. The protagonist replied that the main problem is the materials. It can't just be bought. Then he thought that, although he had long ago obtained everything he needed in other worlds, Alexis said that they should first clean up here. They need to repair the destroyed wall. He thought that it would be easy. Tia remembered how he repaired the roof and was horrified. She asked him to stand still and suggested that she and Gonzo do it. Alexis replied that he was not against it. Tia and Gonzo ran to repair it. The protagonist said that okay, he would go and help them too. Alexis asked him to wait and added that he had another task for him. He put his hand on his shoulder and told him to come to his room. He had something to talk to him about. The protagonist was confused. He did not understand what would happen. Meanwhile, Tia began to fix everything with her magic. People surrounded her and shouted that this was the elf from the heroes group. She heard this and turned to them, then apologized for making a hole in their wall. But now they will fix everything. One man from the crowd shouted for them not to worry. Everything will be fine. After all, they saved their city, and they began to thank. One of them began to say that spirit magic is simply amazing, and he envies it. Tia replied that they work for the good of people. They asked her that since this is how it turns out, they will quickly finish off the demon lord. After all, they are counting on them. Tia replied that they will definitely bring peace to this world. Then she started shouting that with their strength, even the demon lord is just a weakling. They will defeat the demon lord's army. The whole crowd started cheering for her. Gonzo came up to her with a huge rock in his hands and said that they will not be able to resist his muscles. People were shocked to see him holding such a huge rock. Gonzo added that it will be the same with the demon lord. Tia told him that less was expected from him. He has the strongest muscles in the whole world. Gonzo took her head and admitted that everything is fine. The more they fight, the higher the expectations from them are. This is also their duty as the hero's partners. But with him, she does not need to pretend to be stronger. She thanked him, and then he added that she should not worry, because with the protagonist, they have become much stronger. They will defeat the demon lord. She thanked him again. Then he asked where Ed and Alexis were. She replied that she didn't know. Meanwhile, the protagonist and Alexis were sitting in the room. Alexis asked if he would like some tea. The protagonist sat in horror and thought what the hell was going on. Alexis added that he doesn't really know how to brew it, and the taste might not be that great. MC replied that everything was fine, and then he thought that he was being too calm, and that scared him. He even invited him to talk face to face. Then he asked what he wanted to talk to him about. The protagonist thought, does he really want to banish him? Alexis put his hand on his sword and replied that he called him to look at it. The protagonist asked, is it a holy sword? Did Alexis allow him to take it out? The main character was surprised because he had seen it in battle many times, but this was the first time he was holding it in his hands. Then he asked, are you sure he doesn't mind? After all, he always got very angry if someone touched his sword. The protagonist was surprised. Why him? He started looking at it and then was shocked. Alexis asked him, did he guess? The protagonist said that his sword seemed to be of excellent quality. They both looked at the sword and saw their reflection. Then Alexis asked if he thought this sword could be considered excellent. The protagonist was confused. After all, this is undoubtedly a masterpiece created from different metals. It is definitely not possible to forge something like this without the proper skill. Alexis replied that he knew it, that he would understand everything right away. Then he added that his sword was not real. It was certainly beautiful, sharp, and so on, but still a fake. The protagonist thought that if he used his skill as a skilled craftsman, he thought he could create exactly the same sword in one go. So what happened to the real holy sword? Then he asked, where is the original? Where did it go? Alexis turned around and replied that he does not know. His reconnaissance squads are searching the world, but have not found anything yet. The protagonist asked, in other words, does everyone think it's real, so that he'll be considered a hero? Alexis replied that he's already a hero, but if the demon lord knows it's fake, then he'll start looking for it himself. If he goes before them, then they won't have a chance. He had been deceiving everyone for a long time. The fake sacred sword was already in a critical condition, and no one in this world could forge a sword better than this one. Or rather, he couldn't, until now. He looked at the protagonist and asked him if he could create a sword better than this one. MC thought that with his knowledge and experience from his past life, as well as his exorcism skills, he might be able to forge a better sword. But even so, it would still be just a copy of the sacred sword. The protagonist answered out loud that he was pleased with his faith in him, but the hero didn't let him finish. He bowed before him, which completely confused the protagonist. Alexis said that he would have any materials and equipment. He would provide everything. He once again asked him to create a sword for him, not as a hero, but as a prince. The protagonist exclaimed, what is he saying? It is not proper for him to bow before him. The hero replied that he was ready to bow his head if necessary. He was a hero. The future of all people was on his shoulders. His failure was the defeat of all humanity. So he had to bring hope and win. The protagonist, impressed by his speech, asked him how he could bear such a burden. He had simply been thrust into this role, a victim who had been loaded without asking and forced to fight. A smart person like him would understand everything anyway, so why was he doing all this? Alexis replied that it was all because he was special. He could do whatever he wanted. Any of his most absurd wishes would come true. He had to make everyone's dream of peace and a bright future come true. That's why he asked the MC to do it with his own hands so that he would remain a hero. The protagonist thought, well, arrogance, pride, that's what his soul is like. He saw his thoughts about how he was always special, always looking down on others. He didn't need to make any special efforts to make his dreams and wishes come true. He didn't even need to be chosen, because he was like this from birth. He was already a hero from the very beginning. The protagonist got straight to the point and answered that his sword would be unworthy of a hero. He used the banishment skill, Akashic Compass, and said that the target was the real holy sword and asked the compass where it was. The hero was surprised. Wasn't this thing an artifact for finding demons? The protagonist apologized to him for hiding a lot from him. He couldn't allow his identity and history to be revealed, because then it would be very difficult to banish him from the group. After such determination, he wouldn't be a man if he didn't agree to help him. Alexis asked him if he was a hero too? The protagonist deliberately missed his question and asked him a counter-question. Did he even need help finding the holy sword? If so, he will give him a discount. Let his payment be the death of the demon lord and peace for humanity. Will such conditions suit him? The hero grinned, saying that he never ceases to amaze him. He continued that he will pay such a price. Just let MC take him to the real holy sword, the protagonist said, as the hero wishes. Alexis interrupted him and asked him to call him not a hero, but by his name. The protagonist was surprised, but he continued that he will no longer treat the one to whom he bowed his head like Gonzo and Tia. He is his true comrade. So let him call him by his name. MC replied that he was very surprised, but he will make him a real hero, and addressed him by his name. They shook hands, and the protagonist thought that he finally became a true comrade of the hero. Meanwhile, the townspeople were amazed that Tia fixed the main gate in just one day. Not only did it look amazing, but due to some spiritual magic power, it was much stronger than before. It was time for the allies to set out. The villagers asked the girl to stay a little longer, but she thanked them and refused their offer. The girl replied that her next destination had already been decided. The people were upset, but asked her to look at their expression of gratitude before leaving. In the background of the statue of the monster, there was a statue of a girl. Tia was very surprised by this. The villagers asked her what she thought about this. They put all the effort of their city into making this, although it still does not fully reflect her great achievements. The architect who sculpted these pedestals shouted that he still can't get the girl's feet out of his head back then. He wanted those who did not see it directly to feel it too. The girl asked, why only her? After all, her comrades were there too. Alexis looked at the sculptures appraisingly and asked the architect if he had made them. After his answer, he asked him if he thought about making the lighting from below with multicolored lights. The sculptor happily agreed to this proposal, but the girl became completely embarrassed. She asked them to stop this. She didn't even ask for the sculpture. At that moment, Alexis turned to the protagonist and said that he was counting on him. Having received this new goal, to get the real holy sword, they immediately got down to business and set out on their way. MC's compass only showed the final goal, but not the path, so the adventure was not an easy one. All they could do was follow their destination. They visited beautiful fields, high mountains, dense forests, and even swamps. Sometimes, seeing a dungeon, they went into it in an attempt to find something interesting, but there was nothing there. The protagonist saw many beautiful landscapes, experienced many emotions. In the first playthrough, he did not succeed in any of this. And so, after 3 months of wandering, he and his comrades arrived in a secluded northern country, deep in a foggy forest, sandwiched between high mountains. Alexis asked him if this was by any chance the same place they had just passed. Was he sure this was the right path? The protagonist answered that he was sure, but he did not understand the fog that did not disperse even with the magic of spirits. He asked Tia if she knew the reason for this. The girl was silent for a moment and answered that a rather strong spell had been cast on the entire forest, and a careless attempt to disperse it could activate another spell. Alexis noted that the flow of mana here was also strange. Maybe it was a reaction to something? Tia suggested that since what they were looking for was here, maybe it was all because Alexis was with them? The hero grinned and said that she had figured him out. This time they had definitely arrived where they needed to be. Gonzo exclaimed, were they really there? Then they couldn't let their guard down. Otherwise, what happened to Tia last month might happen to them. The girl answered offendedly, saying, how was she supposed to know that something like that would happen there? The hero and Gonzo laughed. The girl turned to the protagonist, saying that these two would now discuss that incident for a long time. Let him help her silence them. MC said, it looks like this time they really hit the jackpot. The smoke cleared and he drew everyone's attention to what was ahead. Tia exclaimed, "What a stunning view there was." In a building with bizarre decor and strange figures near one of the walls was the very sword they had been looking for so long. The protagonist turned to Alexis, who said that deep in the forest of concealment, there's a source of purity, and in its depths, the power of a hero slumbers, which means they have come to the right place after all. He approached the sword and noted that, apparently, only a hero can come here. Tia and Gonzo supported their comrade. They told him to do what needs to be done, and a touching meeting awaits him. He thanked them and turned to MC, that he was also very grateful to him, because without him, he would never have come here. The protagonist sheepishly said that this was their deal, so he should not delay with it. Alexis noted that since it comes to that, why doesn't MC try to pull it out? The protagonist was very surprised by such an offer, but why him? Tia found this very interesting. Alexis continued that only a true hero can get the holy sword. If the protagonist can do it, then he will be a hero too. The friends could not believe such an offer, but the protagonist did not refuse. He said that he would try. He would never have another opportunity like this. Gonzo exclaimed that he would also like to participate in this, and he would like to be next. Tia also expressed her desire to try her hand. The protagonist took hold of the sword's hilt and realized that it was not even moving. Of course, he could easily pull it out by simply moving it to his treasury, but that would not be fair. Gonzo shouted that it was his turn now, grabbed the sword and began to pull it with a loud cry. His attempt was unsuccessful, and he was outraged by this because he has huge muscles but he could not pull it out. Tia exclaimed that it was her turn now, and the protagonist put his hand on the giant's shoulder, calming him down. The girl meanwhile also made many attempts to pull out the weapon, but she also failed. Alexis said that he was the last one left. With the thought that he could finally touch it, he took hold of the sword handle. His friends, watching him, were worried, seeing the state of their comrade. The protagonist asked, is something wrong? Gonzo said, is it just him, or is he very worried? Tia answered that he was fine. The big guy called out to him, but Alexis did not hear his friend. He was thinking about getting this sword, and began to pull it towards himself. The protagonist noted that he was doing well. Gonzo shouted at him not to forget about his muscles, and only the girl interrupted them, such a historical moment, and they are making noise. The friends fell silent and continued to watch in silence. Alexis said that he took the sword in his hand and asked himself, is he a real hero? Suddenly he realized that he was in a room in the castle, where his mother was sitting and holding a small child. She told the baby that his name was Alexis. The child grunted and stirred. The mother laughed and said that he seemed to like his name. She continued that she was sure that one day everyone in the world would know him, because he was special to her. His allies were worried because the hero was motionless. The protagonist called out to him and asked if something had gone wrong. He turned to the others. Did they also think that he was not moving? The protagonist wanted to approach Alexis, but a hand appeared right in front of him from above, blocking his way. Gonzo asked him how he was. They were golems, right? So they had prepared traps for them here too? MC did not know the answer to this question. He simply shouted out the hero's name loudly and asked him to wake up. Tia said that he wouldn't succeed. Their comrade had strong magic. She could see that his consciousness was going somewhere. The friends realized that someone had decided to tell them directly not to interfere with the hero's trial. Meanwhile, Alexis was still conscious in his room in the castle. He had already grown up, and asked his mother to read that story again before going to bed. His mother laughed and said, so he really liked that story about the hero so much? The little boy answered that he really liked that story because the hero would defeat the demon lord and save the world. She asked him if he wanted to become a hero in the future. She was sure that he would become one, and she would wait for that day. The boy assured her that he would try. From that day on, he constantly trained to become a hero and never rested. Even among heroes, he was special, but one meeting changed everything. It was a fight with a huge warrior named Gonzo. After this meeting, he realized that he was not so special, because he was an ordinary boy after all. At this time, his friends tried to attack the golem. Gonzo hit him, but said that this bastard is strong. He did not think that the monster could withstand his fist. Tia replied that if physical attacks do not work, you can try to hit with magic. She asked the protagonist, will he help her? And Gonzo told him to cover Alexis. She hit the monster with magic and shouted at them to stop interfering with them. Gonzo turned to the hero, saying, how long is he going to sleep there? At this time, Alexis in his illusion put his sword to the warrior's throat. Even realizing his weakness, he did not give up his desire to become a hero. Whether it was delusion, nostalgia, or the stubbornness of a child chasing his mother, he still moved forward. The warrior raised his hands up, thereby showing his defeat. Sometime later, he stood in the throne room, and the king announced that today was the day they could put an end to the tyranny of the demon lord. By the will of the gods, a new hero was born. Let the heralds spread this news to everyone. This man's name is Hero Alexis. He thanked his majesty and thought that now he finally became a hero, as he dreamed of. But was it true that he wanted this? His next battle was with the elf Tia. After a long fight, he told her that her magic was simply amazing. She thanked him, and he invited her to join him. He would like to have such a force in his team. The allies introduced themselves to each other. This is how he gathered his comrades, hoping that they would also become stronger. But they still could not keep up with him. Then in his imagination, he saw as if he was asking the girl if she was sure of her assumption. Was there really no other way out of this situation? She answered that she was sure. Although the protagonist is loyal to them, they can no longer protect him. Although he will hate her, she would still like him to remain alive and well. Alexis thought about it and admitted that it would be a reasonable decision. After all, if the protagonist follows them, then in the Lord's domain he will certainly die. In reality, Alexis was indignant. What is this? Why are they showing him this picture? After all, this has never happened in his life. Why show him such an illusion? Or is this not an illusion, but a possible future? He had a feeling that he had forgotten these memories, as if he had lost a lot. As if in a dream, he saw Tia and then Gonzo fighting with someone. He shouted, "Gonzo, now he too? Who is he fighting?" Alexis understood that he had not fulfilled a single promise he made as a hero. In the end, there was nothing left. Was he really worthy of being a hero? He didn't understand why he still couldn't take out his sword, or was he not such a special hero? His friends were trying to wake him up from this sleepy state and fighting the golems. He thought again that no matter what, he was a hero because he was risking everything to save this world. And if he gave up on this, he would be a fool who ran away from problems, and he would die with his pride. And he would have no future. Because for humanity, and for him as a hero, it would be the end, so he would go to the end. At this moment, his allies took a short break, examining the defeated monsters. Alexis wondered if he was a real hero. No way. He never lived the life of an ordinary person. He always lived knowing that he would become a hero. He just resigned himself and played along. They always treated him specially. He admits that he was never a real hero. MC shouted, "What is he talking about?" Alexis shouted, "Who decided that those who try their best are inferior to heroes? Ed did everything for him. And now is the time for him to step up because he is a hero." He launched a powerful attack and everything around him began to shine. Tia was surprised to notice that his sword was beautiful like the glow of the moon. Alexis looked at his weapon and noted, so this is the power of the Holy Sword. With his power and their help, they can reach the Lord of Demons himself. And he can win, MC thought. This is how Alexis became a real hero, and the moonlight shone in his eyes. Tia smiled and noted that they will try hard, but what is wrong with his eyes now? He was perplexed and assumed that it was because of the use of the Holy Sword. After a while, it got dark. The hero was sitting alone, guarding the peace of his friends. Gonzo came up to him and said that he should rest. Let him not worry, because he will stand guard. Alexis asked, "Where are Tia and Ed?" Gonzo explained that they were already asleep. Come to think of it, he was tired too. The hero turned to him and said that although they had not known each other for long, he was very grateful to him. The big guy was perplexed and asked what had come over him. This was clearly not like him. Or was he worried that he would not be able to say these words later? Alexis replied that he did not know. He just wanted to, because they were going with him to certain death. Although they had the right to leave and live the life they wanted. Gonzo asked if he thought they would not cope. He explained that no one knew what awaited each of them in the future. Did he agree with that? His ally agreed with a smile, saying that if they needed determination to fight, those two did not need anything at all. But he should not worry. If anything, he would protect them with his muscles. The hero turned to him again and said that if such a time would come, let him forgive him for everything. Suddenly, monsters started attacking them. Gonzo used the spirit shield and shouted to his sleeping friends to wake up. MC woke up abruptly and getting ready to fight, shouted that he should have warned them earlier. This kind of awakening was too much. Okay, there was little time, he would go and sort it out. Alexis shouted that he would sort it out himself, and that he should cover him. He used the full moon sword ability and there was a powerful explosion. MC ran out of the epicenter and shouted. That's why he wanted to do it himself. He looked at his compass and exclaimed that he had found the one who attacked them. Is Tia ready? The girl replied that she was ready and prepared her attack. The protagonist pointed his finger at the tallest tree and shouted that the enemy would no longer hide. The girl used the Storm Ray ability and directed it towards the tree. Having defeated the monster, the allies continued on their way. The protagonist thought that the lands of demons are a vast, dense forest that divides the domains of humans and demons. He was from the future, carrying Tia on his back using his renegade step skill, and it was just a walk. uncharted territory, teeming with all sorts of creatures. But with a normal step, this is just a killer territory. It will be difficult even for a hero to get out of here. After a while, they made a stop in another place. Tia noted that they had already gone so far, and now it was time to rest. She misses home cooking. They only have canned food left. MC laughed and replied that as soon as they return to the city, he will definitely cook them something delicious. Gonzo noted that for motivation, only delicious food is enough for him. But in these parts, cooking is very dangerous. Tia agreed. They will endure until the city. The protagonist called out to Alexis and asked how he was. He must be tired after such a complex technique. He answered with a smile, "Everything is fine. He should not worry. The technique is complicated, and he doesn't really know how to use it, but he learns quickly. Because he is a hero." Tia noted with a smile. She thought it would take years before they could set foot in the lands of demons. And they came here only half a year after they met Ed. She hopes that they will continue to be together in this composition. Gonzo agreed and added that he also hopes for this, because a day that they spend together is more important than 10 years apart. MC thought, one of the conditions for returning to the White World is to stay in this place for more than 6 months. He just has to wait until he is expelled from here. Now that Alexis has a real holy sword, he is undoubtedly a hero, and he has become the strongest being in this world. Tia and Gonzo are also with him, and they are very strong, and since they traveled with a hero, they are obviously already famous throughout the world. But what about him? Although they fight together, his goal is different from theirs. Whether he stays or leaves, nothing will change. Even if he wanted to, he wasn't allowed to be here. But staying here wasn't such a bad idea. But his efforts were in vain at the moment. His soul was yearning to return home. Gonzo raised his mug and shouted happily. They were almost there. They would defeat the Demon Lord. MC asked with a smile, since it came to that, what would everyone do after the victory? Is there anything they would like to do or do? He thought, since he can't fix anything, then he needs to think of a reason to banish him. Tia noted with a smile. Alexis would become king. The protagonist asked with a smile, and then what? Would he mold wings for the royal castle? The prince discontentedly avoided the answer and asked Gonzo, didn't he want to return to the eastern lands for a while? The big guy agreed and added, let him not worry, it can wait. Alexis replied, like he's not worried. Gonzo laughed and shouted, it's written all over his face. What would Tia like to do? She answered with a smile that she would like to go on a trip around the world. The world is still huge, there is so much she wants to learn and see. Maybe she will find a place where she can make a home for herself and tell everyone about their exploits. It is a wonderful dream, isn't it? Alexis grinned and noted that it was just like her. Tia asked what Ed himself would like. MC explained with a smile that he would return home with souvenirs. His home village is small, but it is quiet and peaceful. She shouted in surprise that she also wants to go there. The protagonist reluctantly said if he has the opportunity, of course. Tia with a pitiful face said that if he wants, they can go with him. Let him just say it. She will not forgive him if he suddenly disappears from this world. Gonzo agreed and added that maybe in the future they will quarrel over something, but they are still comrades who fought shoulder to shoulder, and this bond will be forever unbreakable. Alexis said he didn't know what he was planning, but how long would they pretend to be drunk on just water? And to be honest, it was too early to talk about the future. MC interrupted him and said, let him defeat the Demon Lord at any cost. And what was wrong with a happy future if they were able to create it? Alexis replied that there was nothing wrong and he was not going to break his promise. The protagonist noticed that he thought he had said something different a couple of minutes ago. He asked in confusion, what was he even talking about? The protagonist extended his fist to him and said, let him promise to defeat the Demon Lord, and it didn't matter at what cost. Alexis extended his fist to him in response and agreed, saying he would defeat him at any cost. MC thought about it. This was the first time he parted with them on such a note, but this time he would see it through to the end. That's why he didn't want to have any regrets. From now on, he will try his best, for the sake of faith in their bright future. After a while, Gonzo woke up and noticed that it was time for the guard to change. He also needed to rest. The protagonist asked how Tia and Alexis were doing. He replied that they were sleeping like logs. Did something happen? The protagonist asked if he could ask him for a favor. At that moment, Alexis heard their conversation. The protagonist thought that he did not want to regret anything, because he would dispel all fears about himself. After all, this was his last mission as an exile. After some time, they set off on their way and Tia shouted that she saw the end of the demon lands there. Gonzo happily noted that they had been walking to this place for almost a month. Alexis took out his sword and said that if so, with this attack he would clear their path. He used the ability of the full moon sword and dealt a crushing blow. Suddenly, a huge crowd of different demons appeared in front of them. MC thought, finally he saw those who would kill the hero squad in the future. At that moment, the Demon Lord's army blocked their way. Garagas growled that they had been waiting for them, the great hero and his friends. Only a hero or a madman could come here. How was he going to get past his army in such a tired state? The protagonist answered him. Didn't he think that he had decided to greet them somehow warmly, with so many guests, or was he worried about something? If they wanted to get the hero's autograph, then let them line up. He would gladly cut it out for them with his sacred sword. The monster laughed and asked, "Really?" Strange information had reached them that in fact the leader of their group was not a hero, but a certain black-haired squire handyman who was stronger than the hero. At that moment, a System I appeared, exclaimed that it was him, and told the monster to avenge him for his master. The protagonist cursed that he had forgotten about it. Gonzo asked him what kind of monster was that anyway. The protagonist explained that it was some kind of warning system. The MC suggested that the monster get down to business and asked him if he wanted to let everyone else through and he would stay with him. The monster burst out laughing and advised the protagonist not to be a fool. The lesson he learned from them, humans, was that you shouldn't trust their weakness. You need to kill them here and now. That's why he gathered an army here, and they won't get any further. Alexis said that in order for them to get through, they just need to defeat him, and at the same time, he gathered his army here? He was so stupid that he didn't even bother to protect the Lord? Is he even sure he can defeat them without a plan? The monster screamed that he would kill them and ordered all his troops to attack and finish off their rivals. The friends took a fighting stance. The hero said that they needed to finish these demons as soon as possible. The protagonist took note of this. Tia told the hero not to overdo it. He still had to fight the demon lord. Gonzo supported his friends. He said that they would take on all the small ones. Tia used the magic spell. Let the moon that gathers the earth and gives it shape, the four fangs of the 100-toothed spirit that pierce light and darkness, heed her call to create the earth glaive, and unleashed her magic army on the enemy. Garagas called on his army not to forget that their goal is to wear out the hero. Let them continue to advance and not spare their lives, all for the sake of the Lord. After some time, one of the warriors turned to him that the enemy forces were too strong. They could not even injure them. Elven magic also turned out to be stronger than they thought. They would never be able to stop or wear them out. Garagas was angry. Why was their enemy's defense so strong? When did they become so strong? And the elf, she also casts magic without rest. How does she not run out of mana? He had no choice but to summon Jormungandr and give it the order to bury the opponents. After that, the ground shook and a huge hole appeared. The friends fell into it along with some of their opponents. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise. What was happening? The ground went out from under their feet. Were they trapped? Tia was puzzled by the same question. Gonzo shouted at Garagas, saying, "Is he trying to bury them along with his comrades?" The protagonist shouted to his friends, saying, "Stop falling, they need to get up somehow." Garagas watched them and said that he found a hero. MC at that moment looked back and shouted to his allies that there was a huge snake behind them. Tia shouted for them to hold on and called the Hand of the Earth by her name. The protagonist was worried about the girl, but she told them not to worry, she only had a little bit left. Will the allies escape? The girl's hand grew larger and tried to grab the flying snake, but the monster bit through her hand with its huge teeth. The snake exclaimed that it was a good try on their part, but they still won't succeed. He was just going to swallow them whole. He enjoyed flying. He would never have thought that it was possible, especially with his huge body. In his euphoria, he didn't immediately realize that his opponents were on his back. Gonzo exclaimed that even though he was big, he was still weak. Alexis was surprised that this monster could also fly. The protagonist offered to help the snake get down. The hero answered him that it was an amazing coincidence. They were thinking the same thing. MC called on his friends to make their thoughts come true, and the allies simultaneously thrust their weapons into the monster's bodies. The snake began to writhe in pain and thrash about. The hero shouted at him that he was flying in the wrong direction, and that he should fly to the left and a little higher. The protagonist grumbled that it was hard to actually control this thing. He realized that he was about to fall and asked Tia to cover him with wind magic. The girl did as he asked, and the protagonist regained his balance. He exhaled and asked if it worked. When the snake was destroyed, Tia said that they were on the verge of death, and was very glad that they were alive and well. MC noticed that she had spent a lot of mana, and gave her a potion to drink to restore her strength, not forgetting to thank her for saving them. She waved him off and said that they still had a long way to go. At that moment, Gonzo laughed and exclaimed that he was safe and sound. The protagonist also handed him the potion and said that he could use some recovery too. Alexis turned to the protagonist saying that it wasn't what they had expected, but it seemed that they had succeeded. They had come where they wanted, to the real lands of demons. Only now did the allies see that they were in a very interesting place. Tia said that now they needed to be doubly careful. Alexis said that those devils hadn't gone anywhere. If they didn't hurry, they would be cornered from both sides. The girl agreed with his fears and said that they could go forward, but it would be better to deal with those here first. She sighed and said that they had certainly chosen a difficult path. Alexis turned to them and said that he was glad that he had fought shoulder to shoulder with them. He thanked them from the bottom of his heart. That was what he wanted to tell them. The hero continued that only death awaits them from here, and there is no guarantee that they will be able to leave here alive. Unlike him, the hero, each of them has the right to do as they want. Retreat is also a good option. He swears that he will not blame any of them for anything. The further choice is theirs, to follow him or to leave. The protagonist remembered the moment when Alexis called him for a talk, but did not really say anything. Now he understood what he wanted to ask him then. He thought that such was his determination and pride, and that is why he saved Tia then. His actions contradicted his own actions. The girl asked him why he was interested in this at all. As a matter of course, she will go with him. Gonzo supported her and grumbled, like, is he just walking with the hero? Like on a walk? He came to save the world with the hero. The protagonist looked at Alexis and thought that this is just the way he is, and that is why everyone will follow him. He understood that they are strong without him and will easily cope with everything. Therefore, he asked everyone for forgiveness and said that he was leaving. Tia asked him in confusion, why so suddenly? If he decided to joke like that, then now is not the best time for it. He answered that he is not joking, but telling the truth. The girl was perplexed. Why? Where did such a decision come from? The protagonist apologized to her and continued that he finished here. She did not calm down because he promised to be with them until the end. He thought for a long time, if he stays with them and defeats the demon lord, will he be able to return to his world? If he stays, will it be considered that the hero defeated the lord? After all, they complement each other. If he goes with them, will the condition of his expulsion from the hero's party be fulfilled? If nothing works out, then he will not be able to return to his home world, and he did not want to tempt fate. If so, he should put his life on the line and risk everything for his goal. He had no other way now. That's why he decided to leave the group himself. He wanted to hope that in the distant and wonderful future, there would be a place for him. He said out loud that it all looked something like this, and fell silent. Alexis told him that he himself decided to make such a difficult decision in this situation. It must be very difficult for him. The girl was surprised that the hero was talking about it so calmly. He continued that for the hero, all these demons are a bunch of small fry. They take only numbers. But a person has no chance to cope with them. Tia wanted to protest, but the hero cut her off and said that the protagonist had already decided everything. He was going to go home, and his decision was quite reasonable, and they were obliged to respect it. The main character sincerely thanked him for his understanding and said that on this he was leaving them. The girl sadly hoped that their paths would cross again. The protagonist was also having a hard time, but Alexis supported him, telling him not to worry. Thanks to him, he had a real sacred sword in his hands, and he could easily defeat the Lord. With great effort, he told the protagonist to leave before the monsters caught up with them. The girl, with her last hope, turned to Gonzo, saying that he was silent. Didn't he mind such a decision? The big guy replied that he understood her feelings, but the protagonist had decided everything himself. He thought about it, and Tia called out to him. Was he even listening to her? Gonzo remembered how MC addressed him as a master and asked for one thing. Gonzo was surprised. Why such a formal address? Let him address him as before, informally, or was he worried? The protagonist protested, saying, what's the matter, since he was completely calm. He continued that Alexis had finally gotten the sword. He was the strongest hero the world had ever seen. Besides, Tia has also become much stronger, and he is not far behind them. They are truly the best support for the hero. They are so strong that he begins to worry about the Lord and grinned at his own joke. Gonzo answered him that with his skills, they have a much better chance. The protagonist was embarrassed by his words. The big guy told him not to be modest. He is part of their group. Without him, they would not have come so far, and they are grateful to him for that. He continued, like, what did he want to ask him? Let him not be shy. He will do everything. The protagonist replied that he is not shy. It's just that after they pass the lion's share of the demon lands, they will most likely fall into their ambush. Gonzo said that he himself understands this. They always take numbers. There will most likely be many more of them than they expect. If it was a small group of scouts, they could defeat them right now. MC pointed out that the problem was that the enemy had too big an army. the enemy would definitely send all their troops here. Gonzo replied that anyway, together they would cope with everything. In any case, they would definitely reduce their ranks. Was that bad news? The protagonist completely agreed with him, but since they entered the demon lands, all they did was fight. They couldn't even get enough sleep and rest properly, and this would continue until they left the demon lands. Naturally, if they went to the Lord, they would definitely not be in perfect shape. And to defeat him, you need to be cheerful and full of strength. If they came to him in a deplorable state, what did he think? Would they even have a chance against him? The big guy thought about his words in question. The protagonist turned to him again and conveyed his idea that they needed to make sure that their hero was full of strength, so that Alexis would appear before the ruler in all his glory. Gonzo exclaimed that he agreed with this, and therefore he was his support and shield. MC said that in this case, in order to win, they only needed to make a rational decision at the right moment. If such a moment came, let Gonzo support that decision, support him, the protagonist. And now he turned to him again, as Master Gonzo put a large bag in front of him and told him that here was everything that might be useful to them. It was really very heavy, but he could easily handle such a weight, couldn't he? Gonzo understood everything, remembering their conversation, paused and asked the protagonist to answer him. Was it then that he had already thought about this? The protagonist answered him positively and simply begged with his eyes for help and support. The big guy shouldered the bag and told everyone that it was time for them to leave. The girl didn't want to accept this state of affairs. She still clung to hope and asked if Gonzo was okay with MC leaving. Because there is an army of the Lord of Demons behind. The protagonist turned around and was about to leave. But at that moment, Alexis called out to him and took a step towards him. Gonzo stopped him, but the hero asked him to take his hands off him. The big guy resolutely said that the hero should go the other way. Tia asked what they both did not share at such an hour. Alexis tried to pull his hand away and told Gonzo to stop underestimating him. The big guy said that in order to win, they would have to sacrifice something, or was moving on not a wise decision? He had to use some magic, and the hero asked him what he was doing. Tia was also outraged. Why did he use protective magic? Gonzo answered that he had a hard time with them, but he would not break his promise. The protagonist thought with warmth that he had never doubted him. He looked at the prince trying to calm the girl down and thought that it was the prince who saved Tia in the first circle, the hero Alexis, not him. The protagonist asked him if Gonzo hadn't told him anything, although he already guessed that this would not happen. MC told him that he would deal with the Demon Lord's army. If he killed them all, then his allies would only have the Demon Lord left. Alexis asked him if it means that he had been lying to him all this time. After all, he had been interested in him since their very first meeting and considered him his competitor. Gonzo cut Alexis off mid-sentence and told him that if he was the hero, then he should let the protagonist go. The protagonist continued that everyone believed that he would be the one to defeat the Demon Lord, so let him go and do it. He wondered what the hero would answer him about this. Alexis didn't think that he would have to make such a choice, but he didn't want to throw away his friends either. Tia asked them to stop this conversation. The prince thought, does that mean he should defeat the Lord? His stubborn nature did not allow him to make the right choice, so did he dare to call himself a hero? MC reminded him that he promised to defeat the Overlord. No matter how he did it and what he would have to step over, he had to cope with his destiny. And added that before he left, could he banish him from the hero's party? Tia protested. She did not want to vote for such a decision. She asked her allies to stop the protagonist. The girl wanted to run to him, but Gonzo stopped her. She screamed at him to stop it and let her go, but the big guy only held her tighter. The protagonist turned to the hero again, and he, putting his hand on the sword, said that he was banishing him from the hero's party. But then he added that he would still accept him as a comrade in arms. The protagonist thanked Alexis from the bottom of his heart and told Gonzo that the rest was up to him. The activation condition was met. There were 10 minutes left before the expulsion from the world. He saw the girl's hysteria and mentally addressed her. They decided to go through the second circle, just to see her smile again. But in the end, he brought her to tears again. She continued to scream at her friends to let her go. The protagonist cannot cope alone. She wanted to go with him. The girl cried and thought that she was sacrificing something again for those who are important to her. She is the only one who survived. What are these feelings and memories? Gonzo carried her on his shoulder. She squirmed and continued to scream for him to let her go. The big guy barked at her that she had enough of grieving herself. The protagonist was determined. The girl replied that she knew, but they were the same as him. Gonzo explained to her that MC asked him, he trusted him with the two of them, and he could not let him down. She thought, why does it seem to her that she has seen all this before? Gonzo walked and remembered how he asked the protagonist, "Does he think Alexis himself did it? Will he do such a thing when he finds out?" Shaking his head, driving away this memory, Gonzo said that he does not care about all these words. He will still remain a loyal comrade to him. Tia went limp on the big guy's shoulder. She no longer had any strength to be emotional. At this time, the protagonist met with Garagus and asked him for forgiveness for making him wait. He just helped the hero move on, and in gratitude, he promised to destroy their lord. The monster hissed that their efforts were futile. He would trample his head in the blink of an eye. He had a whole army with him, and he was alone. The protagonist skeptically said something like, he doubts that all of them would be enough for him alone. MC also advised Garagus to get ready, because now they will all disappear. He activated the blood fuse and said to wipe out all the enemies. Garagus laughed and shouted, he means to say that he will kill them? The entire army of the Demon Lord? He would not expect a quick death if he were in his place. MC thought, but he does not know what he is capable of. The days they spent together were the best. At this time, Tia thought that Ed sometimes has a strange expression on his face. When they first met, when he was making weapons. As if he is watching the children through the window of his house. Sometimes it seems to her as if he is trying to pretend that he is not with them. She wishes she could comfort him earlier, because now he has left them. At that moment, Ed's expression was sadder. She cannot ignore the departure of their comrade. She would never choose such a future. After a while, the remaining members of the party met another huge monster. He said, finally he came. Just don't let him tell him that he bypassed all his servants. Humans are quite interesting after all. Alexis confidently shouted that they would defeat him. Tia, in Gonzo's arms, said that everything was fine and that he could let her go. However, she calmed down. The Demon Lord chuckled and noted that he had sacrificed a small fry, and the hero turned out to be more of a coward than he thought. Tia began to cast a spell, saying let the winds come to her. Let them gather in a crescent moon, become her weapon. Let them dance under the dim moonlight and obey her will. In the name of lunarity, she conjures, let it come. Let the winds swirl and destroy her enemies. Tia used the Windbreaker ability and, having created a silver sword of spirits, created a huge tornado. She thought that they needed to win in order to see the joy on Ed's face. The girl with tears in her eyes turned to Alexis, saying, let him defeat the Demon Lord. At this time, the protagonist was furiously destroying small demons. Garagus excitedly shouted that their defense was broken through. Let them call for reinforcements, he thought, like he didn't expect that he would instantly kill the general. Who is he anyway? The demon shouted, what are they doing? There is only one person here. He is only a squire. So why is he so strong? MC, fighting monsters, thought that his enhancement was ending. An exile skill that increases all his characteristics 100-fold. It turns his blood into a thick fog that emanates from his body, and therefore, after 10 minutes, his heart will simply break into pieces and he will die. At this moment, Garagus growled that he was tired of MC and it was time to finish with him. With the help of gravity, he rose up, and such a powerful killer wave was created around him that even the monsters themselves fell into small pieces. The protagonist remarked, wow, they have spells, they didn't even spare their allies. The protagonist was twisted and thrown from side to side. He was amazed by such a force of gravity. The monster triumphed and exclaimed that they caught him. So he can't dodge. He added the skill Supernova Explosion, which left a gaping black hole in space. Garagus again joyfully shouted that no one can dodge this. He looked around. The protagonist was nowhere to be seen. The monster immediately doubted. He did not believe that MC died because somehow everything went too smoothly. He ordered Gigantos to go after the protagonist, and he would regroup his troops in the meantime and then go after them too. The monster set his subordinate the task of not letting the enemies approach the Lord. The ward angrily said that he wanted too much. There is nothing stopping him from killing him and then waiting for the Lord. Later, by killing the hero, he himself will become the Lord. Garagus was indignant, saying, what is he talking about? Let him not get cocky. His stupidity is starting to cross all boundaries. Their common goal is to protect the Lord and kill the protagonist. At that moment, MC appeared in front of them out of nowhere and shouted at them that they will not get anywhere. How many times can he repeat this? Garagus was furious. How did he survive? Why can't he die? The monster called him to die already and activated the gravity of compression. The protagonist thought that he would have to use stronger magic and use the magic absorption skill. The monster attacked him, but the protagonist used enhancement, but realized that it was too weak and he needed to try harder, so he called for a bloody sword. Attacking opponents, the protagonist thought that he would soon leave this world. For 100 years, all he did was help the hero, and he didn't care anymore what he was doing. After all, he was always superfluous. The protagonist used the magical mana accumulation, which shook not only the opponents, but also himself. He knew that no matter what, he always remained himself. He chose his own path. Almost falling into the demon's trap, he used the release skill. He chooses his own path and his own future. The protagonist heard Garagas frantically order his allies to kill MC already. They underestimated him. His strength was on the level of a hero. He grinned and thought that in the end he is always alone. Such is his path, such is the tragedy of his life, and such is his future. And at least in this world, he will not leave a drop of regret. The protagonist stood on one of the piles of defeated opponents, all wounded. He was bleeding from his severed hands, and the system voice announced to him that only 1 minute was left before his return. In the end, only a field of bloody slaughter will remain. The monsters were completely confused. They did not understand how a person could be so strong. Garagas asked him what he was. The protagonist used regeneration, and a new hand grew in place of his right hand, and the left one transformed into a sharply sharpened blade. He sighed and thought that it was time to finish. The opponents shouted that he was not that tenacious. He needed to be killed quickly. They rushed to attack MC. The protagonist fought them off with all his might, cutting or piercing them with the blade on his hand. After some time, they were all destroyed, and the protagonist turned to Garagas, saying that only he remained. He asked the monster how he would prefer to die. The monster answered that he recognized his strength. Perhaps he has no equal in the hero's squad, which is why he was left alone. But his arrogance will be his undoing. He will not allow him to unite with his comrades, and will bury him here, even if it costs him his life. It will all end here. The protagonist used gravity destruction and asked the enemy if he thought he, MC, was the strongest. Don't make him laugh, it's old Gonzo who protects everyone. His body, heart, and muscles are stronger than anyone else's. Alexis's courage knows no bounds. He will continue to move forward until he defeats the Demon Lord. And Tia's warm smile keeps the team's spirit up. They are all the best. And together they are the most fearsome force in the world. That's who they are. They are different from a weakling like him, and that's why he is ready to put everything on the line now. Even if he dies, he knows for sure that his friends will win. The protagonist attacked the monster with a surprise attack, and finally he pierced it with his sword. In the end, Garagas said that he lost, but he still achieved his goal. Such power has its price, and that's why he, too, will fall here and will never see his comrades again. He laughed evilly and wished him, as the strongest loser, to die alone. The protagonist used the enhanced regeneration, at least a little bit of his strength, and cut the monster into pieces. MC was breathing heavily. He felt that even after the enhanced regeneration, it was hard for him, but the enemy was destroyed, and this meant one thing: he made it in time. The protagonist touched his forehead and noticed that he did not even sweat. Of course, it hurt, but he needed to hold on a little longer, and he thought about his friends. There should be no more enemies on their way. He did everything in his power. The rest was left to the hero and his team. But he was sure that they would send the Demon Lord to the other world without any problems. I wonder when it will all end. What will they do? The world of ruins is no more. Alexis and Gonzo have a bright future, and Tia will no longer have to hide in the forest. Everyone will live in this world. He returned to the place where he had parted with his friends and thought that this place had changed a little, but he would not confuse it with anything. Was it fate or inevitability? The protagonist touched the place where, it seemed, not long ago, Tia had been sitting and crying. He believed that this was his final point. He imagined Tia and asked her, had he kept his promise? Had he been able to carry this desire through his entire journey? The lack of an answer was the best reward. The protagonist understood that it was better to leave it here. He approached the return point, inserted the key, and thought that his friends would most likely try to find him. The system voice announced that he had 10 seconds left until his return. The protagonist realized that the absence of any traces of him would be suspicious. A great idea came to him. He was sure that if they saw this, they would definitely believe in his death. The system counted down the remaining seconds. He felt that he was already at the limit, and he did everything he wanted in this world. The protagonist mentally wished good luck to Alexis. He was counting on him and Gonzo, and he asked Tia to take care of everyone. At the 0 countdown, he disappeared, and in the place where he stood, only his lonely sword remained. The transition between worlds was successfully completed. MC exhaled and thought that it seemed like he came back in one piece, and this place was still boring. White world. But above all, he was worried about the worn armor, the weak face, right after the transfer, and the usual useless sword. He thought that everything was as usual. He was glad that everything was as before. If something had changed, then in the worst case, he could die because of the skill of the Exile. He saw door number 1 in front of him. It also had not changed. The protagonist thought about the others. Considering how strong they were, they could probably deal with the Demon Lord in no time. It was a pity that he could not taste the bun now. He would have to wait until the 100th world. He decided to leave it for later. Each time he returned here, it was always nice. Honestly, he thought that he would be able to get something. But it would only be after the second circle. He walked up to the table and reached out his hand to the magic ball. So he would get a new skill or an improved version of the old one. The ball was silent. Nothing happened. At that moment, he received a blow to the head. Without opening his eyes, Ed asked the ball to stop it. He asked the ball why the ball dropped everything right on his head every time. Opening his eyes, MC saw a book in front of him. It was not white. The book said the hero's notes. The book of results. Ed asked, was this his reward? He moved his chair back and sat down to read the book. The protagonist thought that Alexis's autobiography. No, just a collection. It was a diary of observations of Alexis from the point of view of some deity. What bad taste. The book begins on the day Alexis was born. MC wondered if there was even information about his diapers. Every aspect of his life was described. His surroundings, environment, and details that Alexis himself probably could not know were described. Alexis was a pretty sweet child and hated tomatoes. The book meticulously described every detail of the life of the hero Alexis. MC cried over the chapter where it was written about his mother. And he was glad when he read that Alexis was harsh and the old man got mad at him. When the story reached Tia joining them, the hand turning the pages slowed slightly. Ed found a description of himself. When his name finally appeared in the text, he was overcome by a strange feeling that made him immerse himself in reading. He read about his adventures, but he almost forgot about it. Reading about the world he knew from a completely different perspective was quite interesting. However, he suddenly realized that he was here now, reading fairy tales while being outside the pages of this book. Ed thought that the comrades were really strong, as expected of a real party of heroes. If so, then in their story, he was still just a helper. MC thought about his place. Page 282. World 1 of the Hero's Record. Epilogue, the three heroes and the divine messenger. After defeating the demon lord, the hero and his team triumphantly returned to the capital. Upon arrival, the hero Alexis said that there was a fourth comrade with them. Without his help, they would not have defeated the demon lord. He was the true hero who deserved everyone's jubilation. In response to such passionate words, the king issued a decree that the fourth hero should be found. However, despite all attempts, he could not be found. The only proof of his existence were the stories of the team of heroes. Later, the fourth hero was proclaimed as a being sent by the gods to save the world from divine punishment. The protagonist was pleased that they wrote about him. He was the fourth comrade. Without him, they would not have defeated the demon lord. He was the true hero who deserved everyone's jubilation. Ed finished reading the book and thought what a relief it really was. Alexis defeated the demon lord. MC exhaled. He looked at door number 1. Suddenly, he noticed a new item. He asked, "What is it this time?" "A bookshelf." MC placed volume number 1 on the top shelf. Perfect. He decided it was a special shelf. It was empty, demanding to be filled. MC wondered if it had only been written down, what happened to the others? After all, these were the records of a hero, so it wasn't surprising that the narrative had been cut short after the victory. He wondered if old Gonzo had probably returned to his homeland. He didn't have to worry about him. Tia, on the other hand, was a little worrying. Was she traveling the world like she wanted? Was she looking for him? It was scary, but he wouldn't be surprised. Ed walked up to door number 2 and thought they had kept their promise. Now it was his turn. He would provide a happy ending for the remaining 99 worlds. Die Alone was playing in his head. Why was he thinking about this? He had known it all along, hadn't he? This was the future he had chosen. He reached out for the doorknob. He would leave nothing behind and belong to no one, just a scoundrel. He would sacrifice everything to find his happiness, his way home. This was his destiny. Ed almost opened the door but turned his head and saw Tia. She said that she finally found him. Somewhere in a distant castle, children were playing outside. One of the children suggested playing the strongest hero group. One of the boys said that he would be a hero. Someone else shouted that defeating the demon lord would be easy. And so the group of heroes became a legend. One of the boys said, "Well, comrades to the front." He gave everyone the names of the heroes: Ed, Tia, Gonzo. A fat boy asked why he was always a hero. A small boy asked that he would be Ed again. A random passerby asked if he didn't want to be Ed, even though Alexis called him his best friend. The children looked at the random passerby together. One of the boys recognized the passerby as the elf girl. The little girl said how beautiful she was. 10 years had passed since the comrades defeated the demon lord and Ed disappeared. The world is gradually returning to its former appearance. It seems that the kingdom of Notland is the most peaceful place on the planet. The king replied that he understood. He would answer the request as soon as possible. He reassured the visitor that he would personally convey all the information to the townspeople. The man thanked the king. The elderly assistant asked if the king would make the announcement himself. It would be faster that way. The king asked to invite the next visitor. The assistant said that this was the last guest for today. The king politely said that he would listen to the request. What did the visitor want? It was an elven guest. The visitor thanked him for the honor and said she hoped the king was doing well. The king replied that he did not need preludes. The king's time was more valuable than the visitor thought. The visitor said that he would not waste a second then and greeted the king. The king recognized the visitor as Tia. She rushed to hug the king. She screamed, "How many years? How many winters? How much time has passed? 2 years? How have you been?" And he really became a king. King Alexis asked to let him go because he had trouble breathing. Tia talked non-stop. It seemed that Gonzo could not come this time either. Alexis replied that it seemed that he had not finished his business yet. The king asked if Tia had arrived by sea this time. She agreed and said that it took almost half the time of by land. The king's assistant said that Lady Tia's rebellious spirit had not died out. She turned her head and greeted Mr. Reginald. She said that she was glad to see him. Tia asked if Alexis had time to chat now. The king replied that he did not have time, he had an appointment. Tia said that she would wait. The king's assistant said that everything was fine. When he learned that Lady Tia was going to visit, he took the liberty of changing the king's schedule for today. Alexis wondered why he had not heard about this. Tia thanked Mr. Reginald. The evening city was illuminated by lights. Tia went out to the balcony. Alexis offered her a drink because the night was cold. She thanked him and said that Alexis was working hard. The lights of the city were like a river full of stars. The king smiled and said that there was a long road ahead. Although they were still at the very beginning, the first steps had already been taken. The world outside the capital was still immersed in darkness, and he considered it his mission to light up every home no matter how far away. If he could do even that, the promise he made would not be fulfilled. The day when they finally defeated the demon lord, they ran as fast as they could to the place where they and Ed had parted ways. However, all they found there were the remains of countless monsters and a sword belonging to Ed. Tia said that she only wanted to return the protagonist's body to his homeland. And after so many years of searching, she realized that somewhere, he might still be alive. Alexis said that 10 years had already passed since then. He suggested that Tia accept reality. The king was sure that Ed also wanted her to move on. Tia asked if Alexis remembered why she went to the Eastern continent. The king answered, "In order to study the technique that allows you to sense souls." He asked if she succeeded. Tia said that she succeeded. She caused Gonzo a lot of trouble, but thanks to his efforts, she found a clue. She found out where Ed was, or rather where his soul was. Alexis said that they had searched the entire world far and wide, but had found no trace of him. He was surprised that Ed was alive. Tia sadly replied that she did not yet know how to get to him. Alexis asked what she meant. Tia explained that Ed was too far away, maybe somewhere beyond the seas, beyond the sky, or even somewhere beyond the borders of our world. So she thought of a little trick. There was a spell that would allow one to reach a target, wherever it was. Alexis asked if it was teleportation magic, but he thought it was impossible because it required an incredible amount of mana. Tia replied that she was an elf, so her mana reserves were enormous. But even that was not enough. Alexis got angry and said, especially if it was Tia. In that case, she would need to gather mana from all over the country or from all over the world. He suggested that she find volunteers. The king was sure that people would support the idea if they knew for whom all this was necessary. The hardest part would be reaching the destination. Moving to an unknown location is very risky. You need to prepare. Tia thanked him and said that it was her selfish wish. She wanted to do it herself. Ed would be angry with her if she caused trouble for anyone else. She was sure that she would be fine. After all, she was a member of the strongest hero group that saved the world, right? She asked him to just rely on her. Alexis was working in his office. Mr. Reginald came in and said that it was time to get ready for bed. The king was surprised that it was already time and said that he would finish his work now. Reginald said that he could prepare everything right now. He asked if the king wanted to have dinner with Lady Tia. The king refused. There was no need for that now. Tia had finally found what would lead her to Ed. He did not want to get in her way. Reginald asked where Lady Tia was now. Alexis answered that she was in the archive. He gave her access. She must be completely immersed in her research. That's why he wants to do his best now. Tia stood in the archive. She understood how the two of them felt, but she felt like they had taken on too much. She just didn't want anyone's health to fail. Each of them was looking for their own way to meet Ed. Tia thought that she had finally caught her escaped comrade by the tail. Alexis wasn't going to let him go just like that either. Night in the National Archives. Tia sat at the table. Around her were piles of red books. Amazing, so much research, as expected from the National Archives. Archive assistant Lin brought new books. He said that he had collected the research she asked for. He asked her to let her know if she needed anything else. Tia thanked him and apologized for the inconvenience. The assistant said that he would help as long as it was useful for Lady Tia. He said that he was very worried about her and asked her to do his best. Tia thanked Lin for her help. Alexis gave her access to the National Archives. Thanks to that, she could read almost all the research collected in this place, including classified documents that would normally be inaccessible to her. She flipped through book after book. The theory of dual manifestation of magic, changes in the mana of the demon world, the relationship between muscles and magic. With so many resources, her research should quickly take off. Having friends like these was a blessing, so she would do it. She swears that she will find Ed. Muscles can emit magic no matter how long it takes, even if she has to devote the rest of her life to it. The silver sword that Ed left behind is still kept in the royal treasury. Wrong again, she finally found out where Ed is with the second wing of the sword. Just one more step. She felt like she was almost there, but she was too far from Ed. Tia thought she would finally see him. She read a lot of books, but it was not enough. She mentally turned to Ed. Why did he need to go so far? She missed him. Her strength almost left her. Tia laid her head on the books she had read and suddenly saw the one about the practical importance of using external mana to cast large-scale spells. She pulled out a book from the pile and picked it up. Researcher Rouge was written on the book. She realized that she would not give up. Almost running, she hurried to meet Alexis. The priest at the threshold of the castle greeted Tia and wished her a good morning. He said that she seemed to be in high spirits today. Perhaps something good happened? Tia grinned and asked if he really thought so. The guard at the door did not let her in and asked her to wait, because His Majesty was busy now. Tia was in such a hurry that she did not listen to anyone. She burst into the castle and screamed that she found something amazing. She opened another door and entered the conference room. Tia shouted that this is what she would get to Ed with, wherever he was. There was a large table in the room, and the advisors were sitting behind it. Everyone turned and looked at Tia. She blushed and asked that she was probably a little hasty. Tia apologized for the intrusion and closed the doors of the room. Alexis barely restrained himself from laughing. A smile just crawled onto his face. Tia was energetic as always. It seemed she had made some kind of discovery. The king asked his subordinates to take a short break. Everyone agreed unanimously. Alexis followed Tia into the corridor. He said that she was even more energetic than usual today and asked what was the matter. Tia apologized. She did not want to disrupt the meeting. She asked if Alexis was free now. She pulled out that very book from her backpack and said that this article was simply amazing. I wonder what kind of person its author is? The king took the book and said that she was the author. Rouge was really talented. Tia asked if she could borrow this article for a while. She noticed that Alexis was wearing armor and asked why. The king said that the place he needed to look at could be quite dangerous. Not that any problems could cause him trouble. The original of this article is kept in a safe place. The king asked what discovery she made. Tia said that using this theory, the method she abandoned would work. The rest is a secret for now. She will tell you if everything goes smoothly. Alexis said that they will eagerly await the result. Tia replied that she will conduct a successful experiment. She asked to rely on her. Tia thanked Alexis for everything. It was time to give it her all. She hurried away and wished him luck with his royal affairs. The king watched her go. He was as cheerful as before. Somewhere on the bell tower, Tia called out to the older man and asked for his attention for a moment. She was out of breath from the climb to the very top. Tia wanted to ask him something. The truth was that she had found a way that wasn't obvious. It was just a theory, of course, but if she really applied it, she could transcend this world and find Ed wherever he was. However, she needed to be stationed in an area rich in atmospheric mana. There was only one place that fit that description. She called her assistant Griffin to help. Tia jumped on his back and flew off to the demon land. She was sure that was where it would work. Alexis and Gonzo were already in their places. They were doing what they were supposed to. Her flight had been so long that she had flown under both the scorching sun and the pouring rain with thunderstorms. Tia couldn't bother her friends anymore. This was what she wanted, so she would do it herself. She imagined Ed, who did not want his comrades' efforts to be in vain. Over the past 10 years, Tia had tried many methods, and even now, she did not know whether her plan would work or everything was in vain, but she refused to give up. Ed was still in her heart. She flew to the desired place. Her faithful friend was always next to her. She found all the ingredients for her research, everything as described in the book, checked the leaves of plants, moss on tree trunks, climbed into the dead forest where the magic source was. The water from the source was transparent like a tear. Microorganisms flew around, and inside them, a new life was born. Tia wrote everything down in her diary. Her faithful griffin warmed her at night with his warmth, guarded her during the day, flying over the dead forest, protected her from fierce huge beasts. But Tia was ready to fight anyone herself. Time passed, so day after day and night after night passed. One day Tia gathered the necessary ingredients and planted them in the ground. She watered everything with water from a living spring, and the sunlight helped new life to grow. A small living tree sprouted from the ground. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, it was snowing. The ship docked at a large settlement. Gonzo and his crew came down from the ship. Gonzo said that he had not seen Alexis for a long time. Was he last here 4 years ago? Alexis thanked him for coming. Gonzo asked not to thank him. It was his duty to cleanse the land. He also took with him several warrior monks. The king thanked Gonzo and said that if he could clear the miasma here, it would be the first step in creating a teleportation gate. Gonzo joked that he couldn't believe he had lived to see such technology. Alexis said that it was all thanks to Tia. She was the one who made the discovery after reviewing some research. Gonzo asked where she was now. They went into a large wooden house. Inside there was a warm fire burning. Gonzo said that Tia was supposed to have returned 3 months ago. Alexis confirmed that she had come, but he added that Tia had set off again, saying that some thread was leading her to Ed. He asked if she had visited him before. Gonzo replied that he had actually given her some parting words. Alexis said that he wished she would rely on them a little more. It was true that they had a lot of responsibility and could not move as freely as she did. But even so, they shared a desire to meet Ed again. Tia doesn't have to take responsibility for herself alone. Of course she enjoys it. Gonzo interrupted Alexis. He said that Alexis was wrong. Tia was in the same boat as them. She was just in her place like them, so she can devote herself carefree to finding this boy. A helping hand was not the only way to help her. Alexis said that even though he was the king, it seemed he still had a lot to learn. Gonzo laughed and said that this was life. He asked again where Tia was. Was she probably in some lab? Alexis hung his head and said that Tia was not there. Upon arrival, she took the research and rushed away again. Gonzo said that she was clearly in a hurry. Alexis continued that he had thought about it too, but that was Tia all over. With an idea in her mind, she could not sit still. Gonzo said that this girl had not changed. But Alexis must know at least something. There must be some kind of clue. Alexis began to tell the contents of the research that Tia was interested in. At that moment, a girl appeared from above. She asked if they were talking about her by any chance. The king replied that she was just in time, because they had just started talking about her work. They had a few questions and they wanted to ask them. Gonzo said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and that the girl looked great. That girl was Rouge. She said that she welcomed everyone except Gonzo. Alexis asked Rouge if she knew how Tia got her research. They were just thinking about what her goal was. Rouge was surprised that they didn't even know that. She would be happy to tell, on the condition that the research budget would be doubled. Alexis asked her to tell her everything. Rouge screamed that if she was being asked for a favor, she should be more modest. Alexis was indignant that it was her job to report the results of the research. If she wanted to double the budget, she had to go through the proper procedures. Gonzo asked them to calm down. He asked what kind of research it was. The king said that he would take into account all of Rouge's wishes and asked her to tell them everything. Rouge asked if they had read the work. Gonzo apologized and said he had never seen it. Rouge said that she would explain everything from the beginning. The main theme of the work is the use of external mana. In simple terms, there is a way to use the mana around everyone as if it belonged to you. Previously, it took the efforts of several mages at once to cast large-scale spells. But with this method, theoretically, one will be enough. All that is needed is a magic circle. So almost anyone can do it if they know how to activate magic circles. This is why it is possible to create teleportation gates. She asked if they wanted to know the incredible nature of this discovery. The discovery requires a lot of stable mana. This is a breakthrough. It will advance magical technology by 100 years. Gonzo said that it sounds fantastic. Alexis said that he was familiar with the contents in general terms, but hearing it again is truly incredible. Then, where could Tia have gone? Gonzo asked Rouge if the strength of external mana changes depending on the location of the mage. Rouge answered, of course. A place rich in mana would obviously be much better for casting a spell. Gonzo asked for an example of a place like that. Rouge asked for time to think. She ruled out that place because it was too saturated with mana, but if they were talking about the most effective, it would be a place where monsters lived forever. Alexis and Gonzo looked at each other and simultaneously said that it was the Demon Lands. Alexis opened the gate and went outside. Rouge ran after him. She asked what had come over him. Alexis apologized and said that they were postponing the cleanup. Rouge didn't understand what he was talking about. What would he achieve by giving up halfway? Alexis said that he had an urgent matter. He was going to find Tia. Gonzo asked, "Right now?" Alexis replied that if Rouge was right, Tia had already gathered everything she needed, and if they waited another 3 months, they would have no idea where she would go to find Ed. Gonzo asked, Tia was in a hurry, right? That would be just like her. Since the Demon Lord was defeated, his influence was slowly fading. The king said that he was sure Tia would be fine in the Demon Lands, and that was why if they didn't hurry, her trace would disappear. Rouge stopped them. She was against it. She asked if they were seriously going to go all the way to the Demon Lands. Alexis said he understood what she was trying to say. He would bow his head to her if necessary, but right now he was going to do it no matter what. Rouge asked him to explain everything and not beat around the bush. Reginald asked what happened. Rouge screamed that he was just in time. She asked him to make the stupid king explain everything. Reginald asked if Lady Tia had already completed the teleportation spell. Rouge explained that this time, the plan would affect an outrageous number of people. She asked if Alexis realized how much trouble this would cause. And not just for his kingdom, for the entire eastern continent. Besides, it would take 6 full days to get to the Demon Lands. Was Alexis seriously going to make her wait that long? Rouge couldn't believe her ears. Reginald intervened. He said that Lady Rouge was right. But he asked if the king had a reason to go there without a shadow of a doubt. Alexis replied that this time he wanted to do it no matter what. He wanted to see a friend. He and his comrade were going on a journey. Rouge screamed that this was a completely selfish reason. And after that he called himself a king? Gonzo stopped Rouge. He said that Alexis was asking for a reward he deserved. For saving the world, for fulfilling his duty as a hero, Alexis had every right to do so. And he was asking for his reward now. This was the wish of a true hero who had heard everyone's prayers. Didn't he deserve such a small thing? Of course he would go with Alexis, since he too hadn't received his reward yet. Rouge screamed that the two of them were just doing whatever came into their heads. Reginald wished fair winds to his majesty, or rather to the hero Alexis. Rouge was angry and said that they should do as they knew. Alexis apologized to her. Reginald asked to leave him. He would look after Lady Rouge. He would wait for his return and good news from the dear prince. Alexis thanked him and took the crown off his head. The king shouted to Gonzo that they were leaving immediately. Offended Rouge said that this is why she can't stand men. Regardless of their age, they behave like children. Reginald agreed with her, but he believed that this was in the order of things. The hero, who always fought for the good of others, pursues his selfish desire for the sake of a friend. The fact that he believes in the correctness of the decision made makes him truly happy. Spread your wings, my prince. Alexis and Gonzo mounted their griffins and flew away. Alexis thought of Tia, Gonzo and Ed, his irreplaceable comrades. He understood that their paths could diverge. No matter how warm that fire was, if the embers had time to burn out, they would go separately. So at least one last time he wanted to see his friend, so he had no regrets. Gonzo called out to Alexis and pointed down to the huge living trees on the Demon Land. He said that these giant trees were different from the surrounding vegetation. Someone had obviously put their hand to it. It was probably work. He didn't have time to finish. Alexis continued the sentence for him. It was Tia's work. I wonder why they were there? Gonzo shouted to Alexis that there was smoke coming out, and they directed their birds to the house below. Alexis quickly jumped down and ran to it. He was calling Tia. Is she here? From the house he heard her surprised voice. She asked what he was doing here. She asked him to wait a minute. Her bird behaved aggressively when he saw the guests. His name was Cooley. She calmed him down, saying that they were friends. Then she opened the door a little and looked out. She saw Alexis and Gonzo. She was surprised that they were already here. She offered to let them in. They agreed. Tia invited them to settle in and make themselves at home. She asked, this place is small, but quite cozy, right? Alexis asked, was it she who built this place? Tia confirmed and explained that she built it with magic. She asked, how did they get here so quickly? They just received her letter. Gonzo was surprised. What kind of letter? Alexis was also confused. Then Tia asked, wait a minute, if they didn't receive a letter, why did they come here? They talked until it got dark. Tia chuckled, so Gonzo is here to help with the installation of the teleportation gate. In that case, everything will go like clockwork. The theory was correct. She was sure that everything will be fine. She had already confirmed everything. Alexis said that he knew it. Gonzo asked, were the trees they saw from above part of her work? She confirmed and asked, are they amazing, aren't they? She said that it took effort, but the result was worth it. It is a special kind of tree that accumulates the surrounding mana. This house is built from them. That's why it worked. Gonzo was surprised. Accumulation of mana. Then these trees are like the connectors of a large network? She confirmed and said that by using the mana accumulated in them and connecting their roots, she can get one huge magic circle. And when activated, all the mana will gather together, allowing her to reach the place where Ed is. The preparations are already complete, so she sent the letter, because she wanted to say goodbye properly. Alexis and Gonzo were upset by what they heard. Gonzo said that he thought her efforts paid off. He asked when she was leaving. She smirked and said, maybe tomorrow? Alexis and Gonzo were indignant at the same time. What? Isn't she in too much of a hurry? She told them that they had already met. Besides, they both had their own responsibilities. So it was time for her to go too. So they sat and chatted. Alexis laughed and told Gonzo that, frankly, he was no match for him. Gonzo cheerfully suggested, let's chat all night long. Tia said that it had been a time since they sat like this. Alexis asked, is it okay that it is so late? She said, everything is fine. She is full of energy. She mentally addressed Ed and said that they will see each other again soon. Seeing them sending her on her way with a smile on their faces, would he be happy? Or angry? Either way, she just wants to see him. Even if it means leaving everything behind. They were sitting outside under the starry sky. Alexis called her. She asked, what's the matter? He asked, will she take care of him, right? There was a pause. Then she said that she definitely would. He understood everything. Then they looked at the stars and she decided that she wanted to see Ed at least one more time, no matter what it took. Dawn came and everything around sparkled under the rays of the sun. Alexis recognized this place and asked, is this the place where they found Ed's sword? Tia confirmed his guess and said that this is the place where his last trace was found. She thinks this place is the closest to where he is now, so she is going to activate the magic circle here. Alexis called her by name and said that he wanted to give her something. She was surprised and asked what it was. Alexis laughed and said that it was just a parting gift. It was a pendant that the investigation team found while searching for the holy sword. It was not much, but it contained healing power. She was even more surprised. She could really take it? Wasn't it too valuable? Alexis said that he had Gonzo, and she would need the pendant since she was traveling alone. Tia thanked him. Gonzo handed her the bracers and said that they were made by one of the craftsmen. First class, but not as good as what Ed made for them, of course. Tia thanked Gonzo and told him that it was amazing. Now she was definitely ready. She put all the gifts on herself and asked how they liked it. Isn't it weird? They laughed and said that Tia looked perfect. She went to Cooley and thanked him for everything. She told him to take care of himself when he returned to the castle. Then she hugged her friends. She thanked them. Tia thought that they were her best friends and comrades who always supported her. She held the necessary attributes for teleportation in her hands and said that she was leaving. She connected these attributes and a glow appeared. Tia thought that saying goodbye was not the end, but an important step to break through. Alexis shouted after her to say hello to Ed. A pillar of light with rings formed around her. Thinking about her dear friend Ed, she left. She was worried. Where was he? Tia flew through space and time thanks to her magic. Faces and worlds flew around. What is this? What did he look like? At first glance, he was an ordinary guy. Tia thought, is this the world she saw in her dreams? No, these are other people's memories, gushing in a turbid current. Her soul seems to be screaming, this is not a dream. She was flying and saw herself from the outside. These are her memories. She was calling out to someone and asking them to turn her wish into reality. To take away her past, future, and everything she has. Suddenly she saw Ed's image. She called out to him loudly. And suddenly she began to move away from him. She was scared. No. Wait a minute. Why was she moving away? She wondered. Was she being pulled back because of a lack of mana? Was all this mana still not enough? She was reaching out. She was so close. She begged him to reach out to her. But she was moving away. She closed her eyes and mentally gathered all her mana. Tia resisted this distance from Ed. She decided that this time it was her turn to reach out. Ed changed the past, and she would give him the future. She stretched her hand towards Ed and used all the remaining mana. She demanded to be sent to where Ed was now. Tia opened her eyes and saw him standing in front of her with his back. She didn't know how, but she wanted to make sure that this wasn't a dream. When he turned towards her, she whispered that she had finally found him. Ed was happy, but he couldn't believe his eyes and said that this was too much. Even for a joke, it was too cruel. Tia just couldn't be here. She rushed to hug him. She whispered that she had finally found him. She whispered his name. Ed hugged her. That voice, that warmth, he would never confuse them. This was the real Tia. They both sat on the floor. He stroked her hair. He wrapped her tightly in his arms. Tears were streaming from her eyes. She thanked him. So they sat for a while in silence and hugged. Then he asked if she had calmed down. She answered that she was okay already. She apologized for crying again. He laughed and said it was fine. If she liked his chest so much, then he had it all for her. And as for gratitude, wait a minute. Again? She replied that now she knew everything he had done for her and for all his friends, when he had granted her wish that day, changing the past and the future. Now it was clear why she had wanted to see him so much. She thanked him again. Because of her. She could not find the words through her tears. His future. She was at a loss for words. He said, "Wait, what was she trying to say? How would she know? And how did she end up here anyway?" She explained it briefly. He was horrified. What was she thinking? She had been looking for him for 10 years. Moreover, she had decided to teleport here with a low chance of success. Had she gone crazy? Did she understand that she could disappear with the slightest mistake? Why had she acted so rashly? He realized everything she had done and was horrified. She laughed and asked if he wanted to know the reason. Because someone had disappeared without a trace, without telling them a word. He tried to object, but she wouldn't listen to him. She said that she had caught him this time, and she wouldn't let him escape again. She touched her palms to his face. He felt a slight tremor in her hands. "I see." She was still the same. He realized that Tia had left everything behind to find him. That's how determined she was. In this case, the only thing he should say to her was words of gratitude. He thanked her and said that he was very glad to see her again. He hugged her again. She said she was glad too. She whispered about his scent and sniffed it. He was outraged. She asked him to accept it. Before coming here, some memories of the other her had found a place in her mind. In the end, only she survived. Such sad memories. After they banished Ed, they were left alone, surrounded by an army of demons. But now, everything is different. Alexis and Gonzo are alive. The world is at peace, all thanks to the protagonist. She thanked him again. He asked her not to be stupid. This is all the result of everyone's efforts that led to this, right? She confirmed his words, but said that he was too. She said that he was one of them, okay? He thought for a moment and said that he only helped a little for his own benefit. She laughed and said, "So be it." Tia asked what kind of place this was. No matter how you look at it, it didn't look like a normal world. He confirmed it and said that the story would be long. Did she want to listen? She happily agreed. The protagonist told her his story. She screamed, what was he thinking? Banished from 100 worlds? That was just terrible. And after achieving success, he just gave up everything to start over from the beginning? Why would he do that? He was scared of her pressure. Then she apologized and thanked him again. They hugged again. Then she stood up and told him that she had made a decision. She was going on a journey through the worlds with him. He was very surprised. What? With him? She confirmed this and asked if he didn't want to. He told her that it was not the matter. Would she be allowed to enter? She asked why not. The protagonist asked if she was sure she did not want to go back. Wouldn't the guys worry about her? She told him not to worry. Everything was thought out. He was surprised. What? She answered that she had already said goodbye to everyone, although she had originally planned to go back. But when she saw him again, she changed her mind. She knows that if she leaves him alone, she will regret it for the rest of her life. She is doing this for her own benefit, just like him. She does not want to leave him, but wants to travel with him. That's all. Of course, if he really does not want to see her around, she will still change her mind. He hugged her again. Then she called his name. He looked at her questioningly. She thought if only she could grant his wish and asked if she could be a part of his wish. He laughed and said that she was being very demanding today, young lady. She asked, didn't he know? She was a very greedy woman. He said that he understood everything, but there were some circumstances that could cause difficulty. She asked what those circumstances were. He told her that the ability to travel between worlds was not his, so he did not know if he could take her with him. Tia called his name and, pointing to the glowing ball, asked what it was. She had always wondered what this glowing thing was. He was very surprised. What? The ball was still glowing? Wasn't that book enough? What was this persistent thing? Tia asked. This crystal ball gave him powers, right? How beautiful. The protagonist confirmed that this was it and said that he could gain new power if he touched it while it was glowing. Ed didn't understand what was happening. What was the ball reacting to? And suddenly it dawned on him. It can't be. He asked Tia if she could touch the ball. Tia asked him if he was sure and said that if he asked, then fine, she would touch it. She touched the ball with her index finger. Suddenly, there was a bright flash. The protagonist was scared for her. She looked at her hands. Her hands were surrounded by a bright glow. She was scared. What was that? Ed asked if she was okay. Did she feel anything strange? She replied that she was okay. She was just surprised. Handshake, let's go together. She said that an inscription appeared in her head, a feeling as if she too had some powers. He was surprised. What? What abilities exactly? She said that if she holds a person's hand, she can go to another world with him. How can I say it? She feels warmth and comfort in her body. Amazing. Just like the protagonist. She stood there, confused, not understanding what was going on. She cried out happily, hooray, and asked, Does this mean she can travel with him? He wondered, is this just a coincidence? It can't be. Tia received the power of an exile? Was this the rule from the beginning? In other words, he didn't outsmart the system, but just danced to its tune? The protagonist sat down on a chair and thought, everything that happened was God's plan. Tia stood there and looked at him, confused. He continued to think, so if he didn't change the past, he was walking down the same path all this time? But why would God force him to walk in circles? The true goal is to save each of the worlds. Tia called his name, but he didn't react and continued to think. If so, surely there must be other paths. She called him again. Ed. She knelt down in front of him and asked why he had suddenly become so quiet. After all, these powers were supposed to belong to him. Had she done something wrong? He looked at her, laughed, and said that everything was fine. Whoever had these powers, the result was the same. And he thought, yeah, he didn't know anything about God's motives. Ed stroked her hair. Was he complaining? This was the best future he could hope for, wasn't it? He thanked her and asked if they were going together. He told her that he was counting on her. She happily agreed. It would be so much fun. She couldn't believe that she was able to travel to different worlds. He asked if she understood that everything would not be so rosy. She agreed and said no matter what happened, as long as they were together, they could handle anything. He said that she was right. They held hands and walked up to the door with the number 002. He looked at her and asked if she was ready to go right now. Time flows differently here, so they can take a break. She looked at him and remembered how she wanted to be with him. He changed the past, and she wanted to give him a future. When she was looking for him, she asked to take him to the same place where he was. Other fragments of memory flashed through her, but she pushed them away and said that she was fine. In fact, she was full of energy. She was so charged. He understood and suggested, then let's go. Tia agreed. The protagonist opened the door, called Tia, a beautiful lady, and said that he would take her hand and she should not let go. She agreed again and said that she would not let go, even if he asked. He smiled at her and joked about how scary it was. He thought that the very fact that in this cold and white world, there was someone else who emanated such warmth. He would not be able to let go. Even as a reward for saving the world, this was too generous. They entered the door and flew in zero gravity. Tia called him and said, she knows it's a little late to ask, but he asked again, what's wrong? She asked where exactly they were going. He laughed and said she'd find out later. They landed. He stood firmly on his feet and holding Tia in his arms, said, here they are. He put her on her feet. Welcome to another world. She asked, is this world different from their previous one? It doesn't look like it. Ed wanted to answer something, but didn't have time. Someone called out to them and asked, what were the two of them doing here? They turned around and didn't immediately understand who it was. Then they saw him. There he was. Tia thought about it and was surprised. In front of them stood a small animal in armor and with a sword over his shoulder. He asked what creatures without fur were doing in such a place. He told them that this territory belonged to the furry-faced ones. He looked quite menacing. The protagonist asked Tia to stand still and said that he could handle it himself. She wanted to say something. Ed turned to the little animal and said hello. He said to him, Sir Fluffyface, we. But he didn't have time to finish the sentence. Tia rushed to hug the little animal. The protagonist didn't have time to stop her. She screamed that he was cute. Fluffyface barked in fear and asked what she was doing. Tia hugged him and said that he was so small and fluffy. Who is this? He's just incredible. The protagonist shouted at her to let go of the little animal. He demanded that she let go and calm down. It's rude to behave like that with the first person you meet. Tia was surprised. What? He's so cute. Ed told her that it wasn't that. He asked her to listen carefully. This, sir, a hero. She was very surprised. A hero? Fluffyface stood there in bewilderment from such a surprise. The protagonist and Tia bowed and said that they were really sorry. Tia apologized to the protagonist and said that the little animal was so cute. Ed calmed her down and asked her not to worry. Not all is lost. He asked to leave it to him. And now the first thing they need to do is apologize. MC turned to the fluffy-faced one and said that they have never met their kind before. He asks to forgive them with Tia. They are really very sorry. Tia confirmed, really sorry. He is so cute and his fur is very beautiful. The animal was surprised. Fur? She confirmed and said that in the end she could not hold back and hugged him. The animal replied that there is nothing to be done. His fur is really gorgeous. They both nodded their heads in agreement, and Tia said that such gorgeous fur always makes you want to touch. Fluffy-faced was surprised. Really? Fur is that good? Then he grinned and said, well, he has a kind heart, so be it. He forgives them. Ed and Tia bowed and thanked him for this. Fluffyface asked the protagonist, by the way. He recently called him a hero. Does Ed know anything about him? Ed confirmed, of course. Small in stature, but a great fighter. It was clear to him at first glance that he was a hero candidate. He was Waffle, right? Tia asked again in a whisper, a candidate? Fluffyface grinned and confirmed, absolutely right. Then Ed said that they were adventurers who came from the human kingdom to test their skills. He introduced himself that his name was Ed, and the girl's name was Lunarity. You can just call her Tia. She said that in fact, they are from the Hero Selection Committee. Ed supported her and said that he did not think that he would be able to meet a real candidate here. Waffle was surprised. Such a committee existed? The protagonist confirmed and said that the more he looked at him, the more he realized that Waffle was a real hero. His heart skipped a beat. Waffle was surprised. Did it skip a beat? Ed replied, it seems like it was fate that they met him here. The protagonist bowed his head, put his hand on his heart, and asked if Waffle could allow them to accompany him on his further journey. Tia looked at Ed and whispered that he, however, had a sly expression on his face. Waffle thought about it, chuckled, and said that it was quite difficult to come here hairless, and since they had come here together, it was definitely fate. Good. They could stay with him for a while. The protagonist bowed in gratitude and said that they were very happy with this opportunity. Waffle said that he understood everything. After all, he had a kind heart. The protagonist extended his hand to him. Waffle was surprised, even though Ed was hairless. He understood everything. Fluffyface extended his paw to the protagonist and said that in that case, there would definitely be no problems. Okay, let's go. He turned around and went in the direction he needed. Tia asked Ed, what just happened? Ed replied that it was the handshake culture of their people. He extended his hand palm up to show that the protagonist was the younger one, and Waffle placed his on top as the older one. Tia was very surprised, a unique culture. She realized that they were definitely in another world. The protagonist confirmed and said that the beastmen were unique inhabitants of this world. Tia said that she was completely confused. Bipedal beasts, or a mixture of man and beast, a hybrid. The protagonist stopped her and said that this word was forbidden to pronounce, categorically. Tia was surprised. And why? Ed explained, because people more often use the term beastmen. This is a beast that was never able to become a human. But for them, this is an insult. Tia thought about it. They followed Waffle. When they were already approaching the place, he suddenly stopped, turned to them, and asked if they had permission to hunt. The protagonist apologized and said that they did not have one. Waffle said that they would have to pay an entrance fee then. There were 2 huge beastmen with wolf heads at the entrance to the city. The protagonist paid them. Tia was a little scared. When they entered the city, she looked around in fascination and said, this is a city of beastmen. She whispered to Ed, even though they are the same race, they all look different? Why? How? So cool. Look over there. Ed grabbed her hand and pulled her further. He said that she was too excited. Ed asked her to calm down, or she would get lost. And do not point your finger. It is rude. She was glad that he cared about her so much. Waffle led them to the place and said that they had arrived. Ed and Tia would be staying there for the night. He told them that he would stay somewhere else, and tomorrow he would go hunting. Waffle asked what they would do. Ed said that since they had come together, this was a great opportunity to watch the exploits of the fluffy-faced one. Waffle was surprised. Feats? Well, fine. Then tomorrow we should meet at the hunting lodge. Ed bowed and thanked him. Waffle left. Tia asked Ed what she should do. Waffle was too cute. He laughed and said that although he was cute, he was still a hero. She wondered if Alexis would look cute if he put on ears and a tail. And he immediately drove these thoughts away. What nonsense. From behind, another fluffy-faced one asked them if they would end up spending the night or not. In the hotel room, Ed said they should get some clothes from this world. Tia agreed with him and asked why he broke up with Waffle. This hotel didn't seem so bad. They were going to go for a walk around the city. The protagonist explained that he didn't exactly recommend a cheap hotel to them because of their financial situation. He just let them accompany him. He and Waffle were not equal. That's why tomorrow is so important. They need to prove themselves to be recognized as comrades. Beastmen value strength. It's not about Waffle itself, but about the problem this world is facing. Tia asked again, a problem of the world? Are the relations between humans and beastmen really that bad? The protagonist thought for a moment and then answered. The beastmen country they were in was sandwiched between the human countries to the east and the territory controlled by the demon lord to the west. He asked her what problems she thought such a situation would cause. Tia thought for a moment and asked again, well, direct attacks from the demon lord's army? They were walking down a narrow street. He agreed with her. That's right. This country was desperately fighting every day to prevent the demon lord's army from invading. And the human countries weren't directly attacked by monsters as long as this country existed. They seemed to be at peace. Since they are not directly affected, the human countries greatly underestimate the threat of the demon lord's army. They seem to provide some material aid, but for the beastmen who shed blood, this is a very disadvantageous condition. In addition, although this only applies to some people, There are those who look down on the beastmen, thinking of them as a convenient shield that protects them for a pittance. They walked around the city while he was explaining all this, and came to a fruit stand. And he showed her bananas. She could not believe what he was saying. It was outrageous. He agreed with her. It was true. But no matter how much the beastmen dislike humans, they cannot ignore the demon lord's army. Otherwise, their country will be completely destroyed. So the beastmen continue to fight, even if it ultimately protects the human countries, which they do not like. Ed and Tia went to a clothing store. He continued his story, and what is happening? The human countries become even more peaceful, and the beastmen receive even more wounds, but Tia and Ed chose 2 capes. The seller told them the price. Ed continued, but under the pretext of frivolous battles with the army of the Lord of Demons, the people do not understand their pain. The country of beastmen begging for handouts, and the country of cowardly hairless ones who buy the lives of warriors for a pittance? Such a difference in views worsens the relations between both countries. Ed paid for the purchased items. They went to their hotel. There he helped Tia change her clothes. In the room he continued his story, and as can be seen from what he said, the beastmen, who are constantly fighting, also discriminate against weak people who do nothing but hide, calling them hairless. This is so ingrained in the culture that they say it without much malice. That's how cold the relations between the countries have become. The protagonist looked at Tia and said with sadness in his voice, "If the demon lord is defeated, the next war will begin between humans and beastmen." Tia adjusted the cape on her head and turned to Ed and asked, "Can't they do anything about it?" The protagonist thought about it, then looked at Tia and said, "It's difficult. The problems are at the level of states and nations. Can we, outsiders, do anything about it?" Although, Tia tried to cheer him up and said, "But he saved the entire world they were in. He did it. So they can help this time too." The protagonist was surprised, really? Then he laughed and said that the world was saved thanks to the efforts of Tia and the others. He only helped a little. The world is saved by the hands of those who live in it. So this time they will help a little. Together. She confirmed, of course. She is ready for anything. He said that this was a good answer, as expected from T. Then he laughed. Tia asked, "So what will they do next?" He replied that currently, this world is in a stalemate thanks to the efforts of the beastmen. In order to change this situation, the beastmen made one decision, namely, the hero qualification tournament, which will be held in 2 months. This is an event to determine the strongest hero. They looked out the window of the hotel. The city was bustling with life. Ed explained that this tournament will gather the best fighters from all over the country who will compete for the title of hero. Waffle is also one of the participants. Tia understood, so Waffle is a candidate for the hero. So they need to support Mr. Waffle to become a hero? Ed said that is not quite true. Tia was confused and listened further. The protagonist said that even if they do nothing, Waffle will win the qualification tournament and become a hero. Tia was surprised, is that so? I guess that is why we are together, but does that mean we will not do anything for a while? The protagonist told her no, which confused her even more. MC said that if the goal was only expulsion, then it would be possible. But then a big problem arises. Since they have the opportunity to change everything, he really wants to change that ending. She asked again, the ending? What happened the first time? He said that several unpleasant events had accumulated and Waffle stopped smiling forever. Tia had a surprised face after hearing these words. The next morning they met Waffle at the hunting lodge. Waffle was glad that they came. The protagonist greeted him, "Good morning, Waffle." He thanked them and asked how they slept. Anyway, if they all go together, then here. "Well, how is it?" He showed a map with a location. Ed scratched his chin with interest and asked, "So, hunting for Kuronari?" Waffle confirmed and said that Damagumo is just the right opponent. Tia turned to Ed and asked him who the Kuronari were. Ed hesitated and wanted to start explaining, but Waffle beat him to it. "Right, Tia doesn't know. Kuronari are enemies of the world created by the Demon Lord. They attack everything indiscriminately." Tia was surprised. The Demon Lord created them? Waffle confirmed and said, "At least that's what they say. They look a bit like regular animals, only completely black. Their movements are completely different from animals. They are very fast and sharp. If you don't get used to it, you can quickly die. Beastmen constantly fight them, but they, hairless, have never fought them, so it's better to just watch for now." Waffle suggested that they watch how he fights and then join in, okay? The protagonist agreed, no problem. Then, as agreed yesterday, they will just watch up close at the heroic deeds of Waffle. He answered them, agreed. He asked Tia and Ed, do they understand that they will have to defend themselves? Ed confirmed and told him not to worry, they can handle it. The protagonist is very confident in his abilities. They went hunting as a group. On the way, Waffle said that Tia and Ed do not have a hunter's card, so they will not be able to create an official group. And since they will just observe, he will not share the reward with them. If they want to earn money, they can collect medicinal herbs along the way. Ed agreed with him. Waffle was happy, that's great, and asked what kind of strange outfits they are wearing. MC hesitated again. Waffle asked, did they look pretty nice? Did you buy them? Tia confirmed and said they had splurged a bit. The protagonist said that they thought that if it came to that, it would fit in better with everyone else. Waffle agreed, and really, it makes them stand out less. Judging by his appearance, Ed has been to this country before? The protagonist confirmed and said that it was a long time ago. Tia turned to Ed and whispered that if they just watched, they would not have a chance to show their skills. Would they really just watch? Or if Waffle was in trouble, would they help? The protagonist smirked and whispered that it was not quite like that. They had almost reached the place. There was a cave entrance ahead. Ed asked Tia if she understood why he praised Waffle so much, and why did he let her go with them. She answered, to please him and gain his trust. The protagonist answered that he did so the first time, but now, he did not have time to finish. Waffle asked for silence and said that they had arrived at the place. The three of them carefully peered out from around the corner. In the darkness, the Kuronuri with black bodies and glowing white eyes were barely visible. They moved with sharp tentacles. Tia asked if these were Kuronuri. Waffle quickly went into battle and ordered the couple to hide. Tia was surprised. What? There are many of them, and he is alone. The protagonist told her that everything is fine. He did not praise Waffle before, but told the truth. It was not flattery. Tia was very surprised. Meanwhile, Waffle was already wielding his sword in full swing. He cut the Kuronuri in half. He was really strong. One of the Kuronuri threw out his tongue and wrapped it around Waffle's sword. He pulled hard, and the sword fell out of his tenacious paws. The beast-like did not lose his head, and rushed at this Kuronuri with bare paws. He tore it to pieces with his tenacious claws, and returned the sword back to himself. Tia was even more surprised by what she saw. What was that? He killed the Kuronuri with his bare hands. Waffle looks like Gonzo. The protagonist commanded that the observation was over. He needed to show himself. Tia realized this too. Ed rushed to help the fighting Waffle. He killed the biggest one with one blow and called out to the next one. Ed saw out of the corner of his eye how Waffle was watching him and fighting the Kuronuri without stopping. Ed killed two more, then landed on his knee, abruptly pulled out his sword and cut another one in half, who was about to attack Waffle. There was gratitude in the eyes of the beast-like one. Suddenly, the stones around took the shape of hands and grabbed the remaining Kuronuri. It was Tia who summoned a magical earthen hand. She stood and easily controlled it. The protagonist said that it was impressive. Waffle said that it was amazing. Ed asked, she didn't read the spell, did she? And she didn't use the sword he gave her. Tia laughed and said that he was right. After he disappeared, she trained a lot. He was surprised and praised her. Well done. She told him to praise her more. Although in reality, it was all thanks to those bracers. She showed him her hands and said that the artisans from the Eastern Kingdom created this after studying the weapons left by the protagonist. The bracers conduct magic, making it easier to cast spells. A great thing. Although with limitations. Ed said that it was still impressive. How did it work? She wanted to explain to him, but Waffle interrupted her. He said that they were both very strong. Even hairless ones can fight. He apologized for underestimating them. Ed and Tia exchanged glances. Tia told Waffle not to worry about it. After all, she had underestimated him back then too when she hugged him. Waffle agreed and suggested forgetting about it. Then Tia suggested that they get to know each other again and held out her hand. Waffle became wary, thought about it, then held out his hand. He decided that it was better to be friends with such strong warriors. The protagonist pointed to his earthen hands and asked, "What's with this?" Tia remembered that she hadn't finished. She crossed her arms with the bracers on, and her earthen fists clenched so hard that the Kuronuri burst like balloons. Ed and Waffle were very scared. Tia calmly said, "That's it, it's done." She looked at her friends and asked what was happening to them. They stood there shaking. Waffle said that his cherries had clenched. Ed said, "Everything was fine. She was doing well. It was just some kind of association." Waffle pulled out his hunting card and showed that this is how you can absorb the power of the Kuronuri into a hunting card. Tia was surprised by such a miracle and asked how it works. The protagonist answered that he did not know. Besides, the Kuronuri disappear if you leave them. She asked again, in terms of, do they rot quickly? MC answered, in about 10 minutes, they will simply disappear. Waffle gathered all the Kuronuri and explained that then you just need to show the card to the administrator of any hunting lodge, and you can get a reward according to the power you absorb. When they were returning to the inn, Tia said that it was very convenient and asked if she and Ed could make hunter cards for themselves too. Waffle said that usually they wouldn't, but if he recommended it, then maybe they could. Tia was excited, right? The next day, Tia received her hunter card. She held it in her hand and laughed. Tia showed everyone around that she now had a card too. Waffle noticed that she looked very happy. The protagonist laughed and said that it was all thanks to Waffle. Ed also got his hunter card. Waffle was upset for some reason and asked, didn't they both want to go to the hero selection tournament with him? The protagonist confirmed that they did. Waffle said that he had seen their skills, and now that they had certificates, he had a proposal for them. Would they like to officially form a group? The protagonist made a surprised face and asked if it was possible. They would be happy to, but he didn't have time to finish, and Waffle continued. Of course. They are so strong that he wants to become comrades and distribute the reward correctly. Tia was surprised. Comrades? Then she thanked him for the offer and said that she was very glad. She screamed and laughed very loudly. A beastman growled at her, called her hairless, and asked what she was doing. Tia looked at him in fear and apologized. She justified herself by saying that she was a little nervous. He looked at her with a beastly gaze and stretched a clawed paw towards her. She remembered the words of the protagonist. The relationship between humans and beastmen is so bad. If the demon lord is defeated, then the next war will begin between humans and beastmen. If this attack is repelled, she did not have time to think further. Ed hugged her and pushed her aside, and he himself held out his hand. The protagonist apologized for his companion and called the beastman a candidate for the hero Dobin. Dobin became even more angry and demanded that the hairless man not dare to call him so familiarly.